up? What up? What up, Curry Gang? Come on in. Come on in. Emergency news, breaking news. OJ Simpson just passed away. Just died at 76 years old. His family members, you know, uh, reported to the public that he died of passed away from cancer. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this article up. Hold on real quick. Dang, yo, it's crazy. OJ, the juice. You know what I mean? All right, let me share this article real quick. All right, pull this up. Damn, bro, it's crazy. OJ Simpson just passed away, y'all. The juice. You know what I mean? All right, hold on, y'all. I'm trying to pull this article up for y'all real quick. All right, this is ABC. All right.
World watching that trial during that time, the whole world watching TV and listening to the radio, waiting for that verdict to come down. And then when it came down, much of America did not agree with it. And then
All right,
he
so that's
was
ABC 7
sometimes almost comically in and out of the headlines over many years. And then to get in trouble
crazy.
again in Las Vegas,
Now
to
they
keep back
bringing up
his
his
old
old
memorabilia. He got into the memorabilia
bringing up
trade
the
and selling his items over many
past and
years,
all that.
and then went into
All right, so why the
retirement. Always
all right, so all right, let me go down. All right. All right. I see they tweeted from his page. His family said on April 10th, our father, Orenthal James Simpson, succumbed to his battle with cancer. He was surrounded by his children and grandchildren. During this time, there's a transition. His family asks that you please respect their wishes and for privacy and grace. Yep. So he you know, died due to this cancer. Damn, bro, that's crazy, bro. OJ, man, rest in peace, OJ. Damn. Right, that's crazy, right? All right, let me go up here and see what they talking about on.
As we follow this breaking news that O.J. Simpson has died. His family says Simpson died yesterday, saying he succumbed to his battle with cancer surrounded by his children and grandchildren. And we learned in February that Simpson was battling prostate cancer, but he refuted rumors at the time that he was in hospice care. The Heisman Trophy winning football star became the center of national consciousness when he went on trial for the brutal murders of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and waiter Ron Goldman. Simpson was acquitted in that criminal trial, but found liable in a civil wrongful death case. In 2008, Simpson was also found guilty of leading a group of men into a Las Vegas hotel and casino to steal what he claims were his own sports memorabilia at gunpoint. He was granted parole in 2017, and in recent years, he became active on social media, often giving his thoughts on current events and pop culture. His family has asked the public to respect their wishes for privacy and grace at this time. And I want to go to our contributor, SiriusXM radio host Mike Muse, for more on this. Mike, O.J. Simpson has a complicated legacy, to say the least. He went from this football hero to this man engraced and surrounded by controversy. How do you think he'll be remembered?
He'll be remembered as very complicated. It's just as you outlined. It's almost you have to look at O.J. Simpson in three different parts. One, from a football player. Second, as a controversial figure who was acquitted for double homicide. And then post-murder trial, the life that he led. As a football player, he really defined playing a quarter.
Hell yeah, he lived a hard life,
he was
right?
a Heisman Trophy winner. One would even say that he redefined USC's football program and made USC the fighting powerhouse of football that they became. He then went on to have an incredible, successful NFL career where he was adored by many sports fans. He also, too, really brought this energetic style of play to the NFL. Diane, he then began to cross over into acting, into commercials. And at that time, we hadn't seen a football player, or really an athlete at that moment, have such success in the college football arena, then have this incredible success as an NFL player, then to transition into Hollywood and to become a favorite cameo actor, making cameo appearances, and then to do brand commercial deals at that time. Just as Alex Stone just mentioned, the Hertz commercial, he was left a legacy when it comes to brand partnerships and advertising and acting, really blending that pop culture into sports. Then comes the second phase of O.J. Simpson, which is the trial. And because of all the things I just outlined, from this incredible college football career to incredible NFL career, then this double murder trial that happened that really changed the way that we looked at courtroom television. It really took us into how courtrooms are run from this very sensational way. And you're showing clips right now, Diane, of that Bronco chase. This was a moment, LA, Southern California, they're used to seeing car chases, but we weren't used to seeing that in the rest of part of America.
And
I
not
grew
a
up in Lansing,
celebrity,
Michigan at the time of that Bronco chase, and I couldn't believe
not a
my
celebrity of
eyes. I
that
was
magnitude.
glued to the television looking at this chase of this iconic man running from the law in fear for what was possible, leaving the world in shock, wondering what is happening in that moment. The world stood still in that moment. And then we began to see this trial. This trial birthed stars in the sense of legal and attorneys. You think about Johnny Cochran. He really redefined what a successful defense attorney was. We at that time as a nation, from a pop culture perspective, really understood how defense attorneys worked. Whether or not you agreed with his tactics, whether or not you agreed with the way that he defended his client, he defined what a successful defense
Still a
attorney
legend
is
at the
supposed
end
to
of the day.
do. Also, too, looking at Marsha
Legend,
Clark
bro.
and the LA prosecutors, really redefining what a prosecutor is and really trying that case in a spectacle of a courtroom was unlike anything that we've ever seen before.
And I want to bring in ABC News audio reporter Alex Stone for more, because Alex, it was revealed in February that Simpson was battling prostate cancer. But at the time, he refuted rumors that he was in hospice care, saying he was getting ready to throw a Super Bowl party. What do we know at this point about his health problems?
Well, Diane, you're right. It was actually the day of the Super Bowl that there was a tweet that went out that said that he was in hospice care. And he then, within minutes, it was very quickly, put out a video on X saying it showed him sitting in his SUV. He had a golf hat on, kind of a golf outfit, saying he was great and he was going to go and play and that there was nothing wrong with him. He looked skinny, but otherwise okay. Only a number of weeks ago on the day or the weekend of the Super Bowl. But there had been rumors that he was dealing with cancer. He had put out a tweet a number of months ago, kind of alluding.
Yeah, I remember
that.
that.
He
Yeah,
had
you put
caught
that to me.
cancer of some kind.
Yeah, I'm gonna
But he
play them
didn't get into any
videos too.
details at that point. And so it wasn't clear what it was, what stage it was in, how far along he was. But even a few weeks ago, based on the video, assuming that they had actually filmed it at that time, he looked like he was doing okay. And some of the news had kind of faded away, that he was sick and that the end of life may be coming. And then today, this news coming out from his family.
All right, Mike Muse, Alex Stone, thank you. And again, for anyone just joining us, we are reporting on the breaking news that O.J. Simpson has died. His family says he succumbed to his battle with cancer. We will have much more on his life and legacy right after the break. Stay with us.
Wow.
Now with Hulu.
Yeah, that's just crazy, bro. I guess I'll let that play so we can get back to that. But I'm gonna switch to his IG. I mean his Twitter real quick.
Hey, X-World, it's me, yours truly. Boy, what a beautiful day it is here in Las Vegas. Even though the game is indoors, it wouldn't have mattered, but still, it's nice to have a beautiful day like this. Hey, let me take a moment to say thank you to all the people who reached out to me. My health is good. I mean, obviously, I'm dealing with some issues, but hey, I think I'm just about over it, and I'll be back on that golf course hopefully in a couple of weeks. But it was very nice hearing from you and hearing those good positive words. Thank you. Now, as far as the game goes, obviously my prediction and it's not hope. I'm basing it on who's on the field. I see
Yeah, this was
a
his last
24
video.
20 win by the 49ers. And that, as I said, that's not hope. I'm basing that on the quality of the players that are on the football
Nah,
field. So,
nah, he died from cancer. He was bad on cancer because he announced it. I'm trying to find a video where he announced it at. Could be this one.
hey, X World, it's
Oh
me,
no, this
yours
what he was talking
truly.
about. Apollo Creed, Carl Weathers passing.
Hey, X World, it's me, yours truly. I haven't been around in a while, but today is kind of a special day because it was 66 years ago, 1957.
I think it was one of these videos. I remember him saying about him.
Hey, X World, it's me, yours.
All right, let me see. Go down. I don't know. He might have tweeted that shit. I don't know.
Hey, X World, it's me, yours truly. Well, I'm watching the sports shows this morning, and one thing kind of got on my nerve. One of the shows they're going on about the Buffalo Bills and the firing of Ken Dorsey. Well, first of all, let me make this clear. Buffalo was maybe one of the top three, maybe four teams in football.
Something wrong with the audio? Somebody said the audio. Something wrong with the audio? You can't. Am I clear, y'all? Is the joint coming in clear? Let me know if the audio cool. Cause I don't know. Somebody said the audio was that I don't.
Football until Milano got hurt and Ladarius, I think it's Ladarius White, the cornerback, got hurt. When those guys got hurt,
All right, cool.
the Buffalo Bills.
All right, it was one of these Jones. He was talking about the cancer thing, but I don't remember which video it was. Let me see something.
Hey, X World, hospice? Hospice? You talking
Oh
about
yeah, this is
hospice?
right.
No, I'm not in any hospital. I don't know who put that out there, but whoever put that out there, I guess it's like the Donald say, can't trust the media.
Oh, that's crazy. He posted about this in February. Then
In any event, I'm hosting a ton of
end up in the
Super
hospice.
Bowl here in Las Vegas. All is well, you know. So hey, guys, take care. Have a good Super Bowl weekend. Hey, X World, hospice? Hospice? You talking about hospice? No, I'm not in any hospital. I don't know who put that out there, but whoever put that out there, I guess it's like the Donald say, can't trust the media. In any event, I'm
American at
All right, so
USC
that's
and the
back.
Heisman Trophy winner in 1968. Simpson went to the Buffalo Bills, turning a bad team into a good one and himself into a legend. The first player ever to gain 2,000 yards in a single NFL season, a Hall of Famer.
I'll never let you guys down, man. I'll live up to the honor of being in this hall and being on your team.
With athletic ability and star quality, he became one of the first black athletes to win off the field in the lucrative endorsement game. He starred in commercials on TV and in movies.
Yeah, from Dakota.
Creating a celebrity lifestyle. But that changed in June 1994 when Simpson's ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, was found brutally murdered. She'd been stabbed repeatedly and her throat was slit. Her friend Ronald Goldman was also repeatedly stabbed to death. Simpson quickly became a suspect, and after the now infamous white Bronco slow-speed chase, which was carried live on TV stations around the country, he was arrested. Charged with both murders, Simpson's 9-month murder trial was broadcast to millions.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
2 years later, sued in civil court by the parents of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, the verdict went the other way. Simpson was found liable for the deaths. His assets were seized and he was ordered to pay $33.5 million in restitution to both
Yep.
victims'
You know it's gonna be a
families.
movie.
He
Yep.
never paid a dollar, and virtually bankrupt, Simpson's life became a decade-long encounter with the paparazzi. In 2007, Simpson was arrested after he and friends entered a Las Vegas hotel room to retrieve sports memorabilia Simpson claimed had been stolen from him. The jury disagreed.
Guilty.
Simpson was sentenced to 33 years in prison, but was released on parole after 9 years. Out of the spotlight, the all-American hero and American pariah died as a disgraced but free man. Rena Roy, ABC News.
And I want to bring in ABC's Phil Lipoff, ABC News live anchor Terry Moran, and ABC News contributor, SiriusXM radio host Mike Muse for more on this. Phil, what else do we know at this point about how O.J. Simpson died?
Just really what his family is saying. And as Mike pointed out a short time ago, in February, there was, that rumor. He came out and addressed it. But the official word is from the family today, cancer, age of 76. But what a life and what an end of a life that he led.
Terry, you can't talk about that life without addressing that giant court case that put OJ in the center of national consciousness when he was tried for the murders of his ex-wife and her friend Ronald Goldman. I mean, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, their pictures were everywhere. This case was everywhere. And it's one of those things where everyone who's old enough to remember can tell you where they were when that verdict was read. You covered that entire case at the time, Terry. What was that like, and how do you feel today?
Well, it was just an extraordinary moment. Right? Everybody remembers where they were the moment of that verdict because the country had become completely.
That was 1995.
Trial. It had everything: a celebrity, a surpassingly brilliant athlete. He was a beautiful football player.
October 2nd, 1995.
And an incredibly gifted one.
Yep.
And then really a beloved presence on commercials and in TV series and in movies. No, he was more beloved by the country than almost any other Black American to that point. Maybe you can think of a Louis Armstrong or something like that. And then
where was y'all at during the trial, during the verdict?
He had been accused of killing his wife in that manner with a knife so brutally, and her friend tried to escape, it seemed, in that white Bronco chase. And the trial then gradually came to stand for so much in our country, in our country's racial history. And that's why that moment of that verdict was starkly divided for the most part along racial lines. And I guess, in retrospect, I think that, and I thought this at the time, O.J. Simpson probably didn't deserve all
I think I was
that,
15. I was 15 when
he had committed this crime, the prosecutor said, they acquitted him of it. But also, he didn't deserve the
I was like 14 or 15.
The country was divided over it. If the evidence showed something, the evidence showed it. And if it didn't, the color of his skin shouldn't have mattered. But it did. And that's what really made it
1995 was the verdict.
Mike, I want to bring that
October
point to you
1995.
because part of what captured the national attention in this case was not just OJ's superstardom at the time and the brutal nature of the murders themselves, but also the conversation that this case started around race and policing and the way that the country seemed to be divided in reaction to this verdict. What do you think when you look back on that moment, the way this case captured the nation and the way OJ's legacy continued from there?
That's it right there. I remember where I was when that verdict came out. I was in Mr. Hartley's math class, and we brought television in, and we began to watch it. And right when that verdict came out, I was one of the few Black people that was actually in that math class. And the Black students that were there, we began to lead this social discourse on race and the law. What you saw here was what it means to have
Yeah, I
economics of
think I was like
defense
14 or
when a Black
15
person
when
could
that verdict,
afford to have such a well
somewhere around
staffed
there.
defense attorneys. For far too often, a lot of Black Americans, even still to this day, aren't able to afford such quality defense attorneys, as Terry
Tamiko, you're an
mentioned,
OG.
to look at the evidence to
You're
determine guilt
22?
or innocence.
Yeah,
We look at
dang.
what was happening during that time period with the LAPD. The LAPD had historic and documented history
Cookie
of
said
racial
26. Oh yeah, you was
discrimination
an
and
OG.
police tactics
You was an
with Black
OG
Americans
OG.
living in Los Angeles. Often, too, when you saw this verdict that got announced, a polarization hit immediately between Black and white. And whether or not you thought that he was guilty or whether or not you thought that he was innocent, what OJ's case really represented for a lot of Black Americans is for so many Black Americans who got railroaded in trials and courts, who was found guilty of crimes that they did not commit, who was found guilty when technology wasn't there to prove DNA or disprove DNA that were there. This O.J. Simpson trial represented something bigger than O.J. when you heard Black Americans talking about it in that moment. It was really for individuals or Black Americans who were sitting on death row, who were convicted and sent to death sentences, who did nothing wrong. Now that we have technology now and DNA testing, you're seeing so many cases now being overturned, being reversed, looking at the evidence, seeing racialized and racist prosecutors who are prosecuting Black individuals who were tried for crimes that they did not commit. Police using tactics to get witnesses to turn in order to avoid them being sent to jail for no reason at all. And so what this trial really represented was bigger than O.J. Simpson. It was bigger than Nicole Brown, unfortunately, and Ron Brown. It was really about racism in the legal system and what happens as a result of that. Still to this day, we still have issues with the economics of defense. Still to this day, we still have discriminatory prosecutors prosecuting Black Americans who should not be prosecuted, and then who don't have the ability to afford that.
Cancer.
And then you saw what happened
Prostate
with Johnny
cancer.
Cochran, who inspired so many Black Americans to go to law school.
Yeah,
they
he's
could
bad
see
on prostate
themselves
cancer, yo.
in a defense attorney fighting for the good of justice. And so to this day, so many people still have opinions on guilt or innocence, but at the end of the day, Diane, those were what the underlying fundamental discourse was happening of that time of racial injustice.
Phil, I know you interviewed OJ
rest in
many
peace, Mr.
times
C, too.
over the year. What stands out to you from your time with him?
Well, I want to come off of something that Mike just said. When we're talking about race in this case, before I interviewed OJ several times while I was working in Miami, I interviewed Mark Furman, who was the officer in this case. If people remember the trial, he was caught on tape using the N-word several times. The defense said that they had planted evidence. I happened to interview Mark Furman when he moved to the panhandle of Idaho when I was at my first job. And I remember sitting there with him and he said, listen, you could say whatever you want about me, but we had more evidence on this man than we had on a lot of people we put away. That stuck in my mind. It just goes to prove what Mike was just saying about race in this country and race surrounding this trial. But when it came to OJ, I had moved to Miami and I was working down there, and he had just moved to Miami. He told me because of the Homestead Act, where any money that you put into your home, you wouldn't have to give to somebody in a verdict. And remember, he was in the civil trial. He was ordered to pay something like $33 million to the Goldman family. And he told me he was specifically building a pool and a putting green in the back of his house in Miami so he wouldn't have to pay the Goldmans a penny. It was chilling to hear him say that with no empathy, even though he had been acquitted. But I will tell you this, an incredibly charming man, which was a juxtaposition from what he was charged with doing, how horrible those murders were. Of course, he was acquitted, but how horrible those murders were, the white Bronco chase. And then to see him, he was so charming in person. And, I asked him if he did those murders, of course. And, he said no to me, as well as he said no to everybody else, and maintained that he was going to find the real killers. But it's fair to point out right now, nobody has ever been charged. Nobody's ever been convicted of those murders. So, according to OJ, the real killers are out there, and he was searching for them.
Terry, I want to bring that point to you because you covered this case in so much detail and followed it thereafter. What do you make of that juxtaposition of the way that OJ was hailed a hero for so long and loved by so many, and then how his legacy changed after that case.
Yeah, it changed completely, and I think Mike is absolutely right. This case did put a powerful lens to focus so much of our difficult, still troubled racial history, because O.J. Simpson was beloved, as beloved as any Black American was up to that time. And as soon as the accusation was made, as soon as it seemed, that he was arrested for these crimes, he changed in the eyes of a lot of Americans. He did change, and I think part of the struggle in that trial was the struggle to see whether or not he could get a fair trial. And his acquittal, I read as a verdict on the LAPD, which, as Mike also pointed out, had these decades of basic oppression of Los Angelinos, of Black Los Angelinos, and so they put on the witness stand a man who, had treated people badly whom he had arrested, and who, as it came out in trial, had used the N-word, and that was an explosive piece of evidence in the trial that the prosecution desperately tried to keep out. And so the jury at the end of the day, I think, said, no, not this time. Not this time. And I think in some ways, O.J. Simpson, who had never really done anything particular to support the cause of civil rights or to get on the problem of police violence, he might not have deserved any of that, but he became the focus for the anger, for the hopes, and for the righteous indignation at Black people who said, given who is putting him away, we are not going to let that happen. And they walked him out of the courtroom, despite the overwhelming evidence and the judgment of most people who saw all of it as I did, that he killed those two people.
Now, Mike, given all that, the way this criminal case panned out, the fact that he was found liable, and then the civil wrongful death lawsuit, the armed robbery conviction later on, and then the way OJ sort of ended, his life, the last few years of him commenting on social media about pop culture and current events. Oh, and of course, his long and successful football career. When you put that all together, what is O.J. Simpson's legacy?
Yeah, before I get there, I want to highlight a really important point. One, Phil and Terry are nailing so many great points right now, but there's something that Terry just mentioned about juries that I wanted to bring up. In America, we have this idea to be tried by a jury of your peers. But far too often when Black Americans sit facing judgment, they often are not looking at jury of their peers who really understand who they are, where they come from. This was a majority Black jury. There was something of a brilliant defense tactic that Johnnie Cochran did, which made Johnnie Cochran such a notable defense attorney. It was when the jury had the chance to go into O.J. Simpson's home, to take a tour of the home. And what Johnnie Cochran did before the jury came in was he looked and examined at all the artwork and photographs that was on O.J. Simpson's home and on his walls. A lot of the artwork and pictures that he had was of him with a lot of white people, a lot of white women in his life. What Johnnie Cochran understood was jury biases that we as Americans don't admit openly or not comfortable in having this discussion of jury biases. He changed the artwork and changed the pictures to have Black art and Black pictures and photos there to make him more relatable and sympathetic and empathetic to that Black jury. That was a major piece of defense strategy that Johnnie Cochran did. That is part of Johnnie Cochran's legacy, to many believe, was part of the jury buying in to OJ into the larger conversation and narrative of racial injustice that Phil and Terry and I are discussing right now.
Yeah, I think this case taught so many of us not only about what happened that day or what people think happened that day, but also about the law itself. I think we saw it being practiced in a way and in a public forum that we had never had before. And so, Terry, I'll go to you to just sort of sum up what you think about OJ's legacy, given how complicated his life was.
Complicated is a great word, Diane, because as somebody who is old enough to have remembered him play football, which is an American game that so many of us love, he was he was an astonishingly great football player. And, you know, somebody works that hard, dedicates himself to that, you can't take that away from him. That said, you know, he lived his life the way he did, and if there's a judge, he's getting judged for it. I think his legacy is left in, as Mike just said, how the jury spoke about him. The jury embraced him to a significant extent as a Black American who, whatever he had done, whoever he married or that had suffered as he had suffered, perhaps even in this trial. And they took the opportunity at the invitation of a brilliant, brilliant lawyer, Johnny Cochran, to render a verdict that would resound through the country about where justice really is in our country. And to this day, we remember it as such. It divides us because there are many, many people who believe he killed those people, and that should be the end of it. Well, it wasn't. The fact that it wasn't.
I got the video where he
And
announced.
Phil, you probably know better than any of us. Any quick final thoughts on his legacy?
Well, I think Terry and Mike are right. His legacy depends on who you ask. There are a lot of people in this country who think he was wrongly accused and rightly acquitted. And then there are a lot of people who...
All right, let me switch to this real quick, y'all. This I found a video.
Really recent years, I unfortunately caught cancer. And so I had to do the whole chemo thing. And I had been told by a couple of close friends of mine and a number of the guys that I play golf in my golf league who are older guys who smoke pot while they're playing golf. And the doctor, to be honest, even the doctor said, you're going to have that nausea. And they wanted to give me some pills. And I said, well, I heard pot was pretty good. You know, gummies and stuff was pretty good.
Yeah, make sure y'all get those gummies from us, too.
Yeah, it does work. But I got to be honest with you. I started smoking a little bit, a couple of puffs a day. And I've only had nausea twice in my whole, I'm over the COVID stuff. I'm sorry, the chemo. I'm over that. I had COVID and cancer at the same time, unfortunately. But I'm over the chemo. But I only had got nauseous on 2 occasions. And it only lasted about 2 or 3 minutes. So I thought the pot really helped me with that form of the unfortunate side of catching cancer. In any event, I'm healthy now. It looks like I beat it. I'm happy about that. I live in Nevada, so I'm all for pot. I think it should be legal. I had lost 30 pounds. It helped me get appetite and get my weight back on. Plus, it helped me sleep. So it worked for me. In any event, I cannot believe a running back, Le'Veon Bell, it's hard to believe that he could smoke pot before he went out there and carried the ball. That just seems like it would slow you down. Your reactions would slow down to the point that you couldn't be that effective. Even though I got to admit, he was a very patient runner. You know, I used to think, I used to watch Le'Veon run, and he was kind of a really patient, slow to make his move type of runner. And so maybe he did. In any event, it's hard for me to believe that you could. I'm just saying, take care. Hope you had a good holiday.
So that's OJ when he announced that he had cancer. He was fighting, using chemo, but then he rejected chemo and started using, cannabis because he said it works better. You know what I'm saying? It kind of eased the pain, and plus, the cannabinoids helps towards that. So I guess he was doing like the gummies, the edible gummies, and probably doing like the CBD and all that. So. So let's go ahead and switch back to the news, see what these niggas talking about on here. Let's get back to this real quick.
Here today is we're saying in as plain terms as we can that under Congress's law, the law that Congress passed, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act.
All right, let's go refresh that real quick.
Now on the death of O.J. Simpson, we're going to go out to a special report.
Breaking news, O.J. Simpson has died. His family says Simpson died yesterday, saying he succumbed to his battle with cancer surrounded by his children and grandchildren. It was revealed in February that Simpson was battling
As an
prostate
entertainer
cancer, but
and
he
infamous
refuted
for the
rumors at the
crimes he
time.
was accused of committing. Born Orenthal James Simpson in San Francisco, July 9th, 1947. Simpson gained national attention as a running back at the University of Southern California, winning the Heisman Trophy his senior year.
Well, our strong point, I think, is just team attitude. I would say the guys
Yeah,
don't
look
want
at the
to
young
lose.
OJ.
We
Wow.
can beat anybody, anytime.
Simpson was the number one
Played for
pick in the
Bills,
1969 NFL Draft, selected by the Buffalo Bills. He won MVP in 1973 after becoming the first NFL player to run for 2,000 yards in a season. Simpson played 11 years in the NFL, 9 with Buffalo, the final 2 with his hometown San Francisco 49ers. He went into the Hall of Fame in 1985.
It really is secondary if you win or lose. It's how you play the game in life and on the field that really matters.
Simpson's popularity on the football field translated into a successful acting career with such movies as The Towering Inferno, Capricorn 1, and the Naked Gun trilogy. He showed off his running ability in commercials for Hertz rental cars. He was also a sports broadcaster.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. I always wanted to play with this guy. Now I'm on a team that is a pretty exclusive team at that.
O.J. Simpson married his first wife, Marguerite Whitley, in 1967. They had 3 children together. The couple divorced in 1979. In 1985, Simpson married Nicole Brown. They had 2 children together. In 1989, Simpson pleaded no contest to spousal abuse. The couple divorced in 1992. It was on June 12,
that he was in hospice care. ABC News audio reporter Alex Stone joins me now.
1994 that Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman
on the phone. Alex, what do we know at this
Oh,
point?
Alex Jones. Let me see what he
Well,
talking about.
Diane, his family, as you mentioned, says that he
Oh, that
died
ain't Alex
yesterday.
Jones. I thought the nigga
Simpson,
said
we're gonna
Alex
watch the
Jones.
special report.
were found stabbed and slashed to death outside her Brentwood home.
The hell?
After gathering evidence, police issued an arrest warrant for
hell?
O.J. Simpson. He was expected to turn himself in, but instead became the subject of the now infamous low-speed pursuit. He was the passenger in a white Ford Bronco driven by former teammate Al Cowlings in a 2-hour chase.
I have OJ in the car.
After leaving attorney Robert Kardashian's Encino home, Cowlings and Simpson drove into Orange County, the chase ending at Simpson's Brentwood home on Rockingham Avenue, where Simpson eventually surrendered. The next year, O.J. Simpson was tried for the murders of Brown and Goldman in what was called the trial of the century. Simpson's dream team of attorneys included Johnny Cochran, who aimed to convince the jury that a bloody glove found at the crime scene did not belong to O.J. Simpson.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
After a nearly
Doesn't
9-month
fit,
trial and less than
must
4
acquit.
hours of deliberations, the jury reached a verdict in October of 1995. Judge Lance Ito had the jury wait a day to allow attorneys who had left town to return. The LAPD went into full tactical alert, setting up barricades outside the criminal courts building. And the next day, the jury came back with not guilty verdicts for Simpson.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the
Doesn't
defendant
fit, must
Orenthal
acquit.
James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson.
For Simpson's team, relief. While the families of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman were in disbelief, and Simpson supporters in the crowd outside the courtroom let out a cheer. O.J. Simpson returned to hugs at his Brentwood home. However, a 1997 civil trial found Simpson liable for the wrongful deaths of Brown and Goldman, and he was ordered to pay $33.5 million in damages. In September of 2007, Simpson was arrested for armed robbery in Las Vegas. Simpson led a group of men into a room at the Palace Station Hotel Casino to recover sports memorabilia he said had been stolen from him.
I wasn't there to hurt anybody. I just wanted my personal things, and I realized I was stupid of me.
In October 2008, O.J. Simpson was found guilty.
Verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, as follows. Count 1, conspiracy to commit a crime. Guilty.
Simpson was sentenced to 33 years in prison. He served nearly 9 years in Lovelock Correctional Center in Nevada before being released on parole in October of 2017. It was in June 2019 that Simpson returned to the public eye, this time on social media. Mark Brown, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Again, that news just breaking. O.J. Simpson dead at 76 years old. We will have continuing coverage on this story throughout the day right here on Eyewitness News.
City could be a step closer to getting its first soccer
All right, let me go back to this, John.
stadium. And today, city council members expected to approve a major redevelopment project.
Yeah, so man, rest in peace, OJ, man.
We dropped everything and gathered around the television to watch a beloved athlete and star run from police. It was a riveting 2-hour slow speed chase that you'll never forget. And here's how it all played out. It's 1:50 in the afternoon at Parker Center, downtown Los Angeles. One of the most watched moments in United States history is about to begin.
The Los Angeles Police Department right now is actively searching for Mr. Simpson.
Rumors had been circulating. Now, confirmation.
He is a wanted murder suspect, and we will go find him.
The news spread throughout Southern California and the rest of the world. Beloved football hero, star, legend, O.J. Simpson was a wanted man and is on the run. At 3 o'clock, LA County DA Gil Garcetti holds a news conference reaffirming the unbelievable.
Today, my office filed murder charges against O.J. Simpson for the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Lyle Goldman.
1994.
As of this time, approximately 3 p.m., no one knows where he is.
It was a story that was getting more riveting by the minute. People were tuning in across the country. Where's OJ?
How do you hide this guy? Where's he going to go? What's he going to do? There's no way.
At 5 p.m., longtime OJ friend Robert Kardashian reads a letter written by Simpson.
If we had a problem, it's because I love her. I loved her so much.
He ends his letter with a phrase, "I've had a great life."
To me, it sounded like, you know, he wanted to.
Hell yeah, that was legendary trial.
Like he's saying goodbye to people.
Hell yeah.
At 5:51,
Trial
a
was
breakthrough.
legendary.
Simpson calls 911, and as many had predicted, has a gun to his head.
I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna go with Nicole. That's all I'm gonna do. That's all I'm trying to do.
Police trace his location to the 5 freeway in Santa Ana. He's in a white Ford Bronco. His best friend, Al Cowlings, is driving.
Northbound I-5 north of Red Hill 960 X-ray on a possible 187 suspect.
The CHP finds him in
Hell
just
yeah, this
minutes.
was 1994.
And so do we, from the air and the ground. It was real life playing out like the ultimate television drama. The star was someone adored for decades, but now living a nightmarish fall from grace. An estimated 95 million people watched. Domino's Pizza reported record sales because people couldn't pull themselves away.
241, I'm behind it, occupied by a male black, northbound 5, north of Red Hill.
911, what are you reporting?
This is AC. I have OJ in the car. He's still alive, but he got a gun to his head. He just wants to see his mother. Let me get him to the house.
As Al Cowlings tried to get OJ home, there was gridlock and overpasses as people desperately tried to get a glimpse of the white Bronco. And when they exit the 405 at sunset, the crowds were waiting.
Here is O.J. Simpson. Yes, indeed. It would appear that he is, in fact, trying to reach his neighborhood, if you will.
At 7:57, the white Bronco arrives at Simpson's Brentwood home. As police negotiate to get him out, a gathering crowd adds to the chaos.
And they're gathering here trying to show their support for Simpson as a standoff is taking place just about 500 yards in front of them right now.
Finally, at 8:47, Simpson surrenders and is seen being driven away, ending one of the most bizarre moments in
Legendary
television
moments,
history.
bro.
But it's only the
Legendary
beginning of a brewing storm.
I'm here in support of O.J. Simpson. Right. Everybody's saying that he killed 2 people. How do they know that the police and the DA didn't make all this evidence up to make him act the way that he's acting?
Well, you just saw how LAPD Commander David Gascon seemed to launch the incredible turn of events that afternoon by announcing O.J. Simpson was a wanted man.
City could be a step closer to getting its first soccer stadium, and today city council members.
All right. It's OJ cheese. Yeah, this was the cheese ball. This Jones.
News leader.
Legendary, bro.
Channel 7.
The past couple of hours, you've been watching the search for O.J. Simpson. And that search ended tonight under the eye of the camera outside his own front door in Brentwood, that section of Los Angeles where he lives. Surrounded by police, by helicopters, and by reporters. We are told that Simpson surrendered to police just a few minutes ago. We are told he gave up after a long, tense standoff, a standoff that, as I say, ended in his own driveway with police officers who remained within shouting distance of his open car door, which we could see a while ago because the light was in our favor then. What you are looking now is a police chase of Simpson and his friend Al Cowling. The finish to this bizarre case began with that picture you're looking at now. Roughly 18 police cars picking up Simpson's trail as he and another man, Al Cowling, rode along a Los Angeles freeway in that white Ford Bronco that you see in the center of the screen and that you see now turning into the driveway of O.J. Simpson's home. That's when the pursuit began to end. During the hour-long journey along the city's highways, the LA highways, Simpson was said to be seen riding in the back seat, holding a gun to his head. The driver is his old friend and former teammate at USC and with the Buffalo Bills, Al Cowling. All this capped a day in which the LA District Attorney announced that O.J. Simpson would be charged with 2 murders, and instead of surrendering as promised, Simpson fled. And his lawyer later told reporters that he feared that Simpson was suicidal. This is what he said.
I had nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her, always have, and always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much. Recently, we came to the understanding that for now, we were not right for each other. I can't go on. No matter what the outcome, people will look and point. I can't take that. I can't subject my children to that. This way, they can move on and go on with their lives.
Yup,
Don't
Kardashian.
feel sorry for
Yup.
me. I've had a great life, great friends. Please think of the real OJ.
Right.
And not this lost person.
Say you're gonna have to meet me at the
And
house.
that man
Oh,
reading
yeah.
a part of a letter that had been left by O.J. Simpson was his good friend Bob Kardashian. I was incorrect. It was not his lawyer, Mr. Shapiro, that I introduced a moment ago. There will be a news conference held by the Los Angeles police in about 1 hour at the police headquarters in Los Angeles, and we will know a good deal more then about what lies ahead of O.J. Simpson immediately. But apparently, he has surrendered to the police, and the next step is that news conference in about an hour. Diana?
Well, Bill, as we've watched these events unfold tonight, there have been many comparisons that this is something like out of a Hollywood movie. And certainly fans and friends of O.J. have been stunned. Longtime ABC Sports announcer Howard Cosell worked alongside O.J. Simpson for years as members of the Monday Night Football broadcast team. Before tonight's developments, he spoke about the situation on the telephone.
O.J. Simpson has had a special place in my heart. We were friends. We were close friends. And now, there's nothing to say except that the law must take its course. For a person like myself who has been close to O.J. Simpson, very close indeed, it's almost more than is bearable.
That is O.J. Simpson's friend, Howard Cosell. And so many of his friends, as we have heard throughout the evening, have been stunned and disbelieving about what has happened involving O.J. Simpson. As police have watched these events, so of course have many of O.J.'s fans. This week of accusations and then today's disappearance and then his surrender tonight has certainly left so many people stunned. David Ushry is live right now with that story. David?
Diana, New York sports fans have certainly had a lot consume their attention lately, not the least of which was the Knicks championship game here at the Garden. Fans are leaving fairly happy, but I can tell you many of them continue to shout out the question to us, what's going on with OJ? The New Yorkers' appetite for sports is bigger than ever these days, but many who headed into the Garden for championship game number 5 found the day's biggest news real distasteful.
I watched him with his 2 kids at the funeral, and I think that's as big a crime as what he committed. He should have gotten the hell out of the picture and not been a part of it, because those kids needed time to grieve now. So instead, they get to spend their grieving day about their dead mother with the person who killed him.
I hope he didn't do it. The guy was a legend. I mean, I've watched him for years and years. I thought he was a great player. I really hope he didn't do it.
Throughout his career, O.J. Simpson has scored big points with the fans as a gentleman with a warm smile. When he put the football down, he picked up a microphone, broadening his appeal and popularity. But despite mounting evidence and ultimately police charges of murder, some fans still have a tough time accepting.
I don't think he would do anything like that. But after you find all the evidence, and
I'm still undecided, really.
Growing up watching him play, it's just disheartening. It really is. And also, when you keep reading these articles about what a great guy he is, it's scary.
Among those in disbelief is his former Buffalo Bills coach, Lou Saban.
OJ hated to block someone. He hated violence. He hated to hit anyone. And that's probably the reason he became such a great running back. He avoided striking people or being struck by people. And I think this is the reason it surprises me that he would be charged for something like this.
No one can deny OJ's contribution to the world of sports and entertainment, but no one can deny the disappointment and shock his fans are feeling tonight. Reporting live in Midtown, I'm David Ushery, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
To wrap up what we do know about this story, it was this morning, LA time. O.J. Simpson was supposed to be picked up by the police, taken in to be charged with the double murder. That is the murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman, on last Sunday night. Ronald Goldman was 25, Nicole was 35, O.J. Simpson, 46. But he disappeared with his friend Al Cowling, and they didn't know where he was. He left what apparently sounded like a suicide note, in which he said, "First, everyone understand, I have nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her, always have, always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much." And then the California State Highway Patrol discovered Al Cowling's car, that white Bronco that we showed you earlier. It was being followed by police. And in that car was Al Cowling, who was OJ's friend.
Chapter 6 is called 6 Uninterrupted Minutes. OJ puts himself hypothetically at the scene of the crime. The chapter 6 is called The Night in Question. And you write in the book, now picture this and keep in mind that this is hypothetical. Yes. Why don't you tell me what might have happened on the night of June 12th, 1994? And let's just walk through the night.
Well, first of all, this is very difficult for me to do this. It was very difficult for me because it's hypothetical. I know and I accept the fact that people are going to feel whatever way they're going to feel. They're going to, whatever they want to feel. In the book, the hypothetical is
Charlie.
Charlie. This guy Charlie shows up, the guy who I used to become friends with, and I don't know why he had been by Nicole's house, but it told me you wouldn't believe what's going on over there. And I remember thinking, well, whatever's going on over there has got to stop, right? So we kind of hooked up together, and I'm kind of broad stroking this. We go over, get into Bronco and go over.
Let's just go back and do the details. Where did you park?
To the detail.
You park
in the hypothetical, go in the alley.
Right. You park in the alley.
Yeah.
And you put on a wool cap and gloves.
In the hypothetical, I put on a cap and gloves.
Right. Yeah. And you reached under the seat for
a knife. I always kept a knife in that car for the crazies and stuff because you can't travel with a gun. And I remember Charlie saying, "You ain't bringing that." I didn't,
my bad.
right? But I
Nothing.
believe he took it.
Charlie took the knife.
Yeah. Hold on, y'all. Hold on, y'all. Let me share this real quick. Damn, I thought the joint was playing. That shit wasn't playing. Yeah, damn. Technical difficulties over this joint, man. Just going back to the interview OJ did. Play that joint back.
6 uninterrupted minutes.
Let me know if y'all can hear that.
Hypothetically.
Press 111 if y'all can hear that.
The chapter 6 is called The Night in Question. And you write in the book, now picture this and keep in mind that this is hypothetical.
That was good. All right, so let me go back. Let me go back to where it was left off at then, sis.
In the book.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the back gate, you go through the back gate.
Yes.
And it was open or broken or?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I go to the front and I'm looking to see what's going on. And I can see that it appears like Nicole I had candles all the time. She really did to keep her overhead down, I think. And music was on. And while I was there, a guy shows up.
So Ron Goldman comes in the back gate.
Yeah, a guy I really didn't recognize. I may have seen him around, but I really didn't recognize him to be anyone. And in the mood I was in, I started having words with him.
He says to you, I just came by to return a pair of glasses. Judy left them at the restaurant.
Yeah, words to that effect, yes.
And
I don't know if I believed it or didn't believe it. It was pretty much immaterial because I was more concerned about everything that was going on, and was fed up with it, I guess. And
you get into a fight. Nicole comes out.
A verbal
fight.
Got a little loud, and by that time, Nicole had come out, and we started having words about who is this guy, why is he here, what's going on.
And she says, "This is my house. Get the F out of here."
Yes, and which I didn't like because, once again, this is the same person. And if you read the book, you'll see some things that happened in the 2 weeks leading up to this that were very, very irritating. And I think Charlie had followed this guy in, wanted to make sure there was no problem, and he brought the knife. As things got heated, I just remember Nicole fell and hurt herself. And this guy kind of got into a karate thing. And I said, well, you think you can kick my ass? And I remember I grabbed the knife. I do remember that portion, taking the knife from Charlie. And to be honest, after that, I don't remember, except I'm standing there and there's all kind of stuff around and
what kind of stuff?
Blood and stuff around. I hate to say this, but this is sorry. I know we got to back up again.
Right. That's okay. I'm going to back up.
Hard. This is hard.
I know. I'm going to back up
to try to make people think that I'm
you wrote in the book, "I had never seen so much blood in my life."
Yes.
You're covered, the scene. Can you describe it?
It's hard for me to describe it, I'm telling you. I don't think any two people could be murdered the way they were without everybody being covered in blood. And of course, I think we've all seen the grisly pictures after. So yeah, I think everything was covered, would have been covered in blood.
And what goes through your mind at a time like that?
I don't know. It's like, what happened?
Right. You write about removing a glove before taking the knife from Charlie.
I had no
He was
memory of doing that, but
laughing
obviously
like hell
I must have
during that
because they
interview.
found the glove there.
And blacking out. Have you ever blacked out before?
Not to my knowledge. No. Of course, if something like this would take place in anybody's life, if it were to happen, I would imagine it's something that you would probably automatically have trouble wrapping your mind around it. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
Staggering first-hand details about the crime scene, which he says are hypothetical.
You wrote in the book, "I had never seen so much blood in my life."
Yes. It's hard for me to describe it, I'm telling you. I don't think any two people could be murdered the way they were without everybody being covered in blood.
Then you see bloody footprints and you decide to take off.
Yes. Actually, I believe Charlie kept saying, we got to get out of here.
And in the book, you describe taking off your shoes, your pants, and your shirt and dropping it in a bundle. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And do you remember what happened?
Because what are you going to do with it? Somebody's got to get rid of, as you may have called during the trial, is that wear the bloody clothes. So somebody had to get rid of the bloody clothes.
Right. And you had left your keys and wallet in your pants pocket, and you had to go back and get it?
To be honest, I think I know that to be true. Yes.
And Charlie is hysterical, screaming, "Jesus Christ, OJ, Jesus Christ." And you tell him to shut up.
Yeah, he's in a panic. He was in a panic. And I'm telling him to shut up. Let's get out of here.
So you get back in the car, you take in your clothes, put them in the bundle.
And drove back and it parked a block away because I knew the limo would be there, and came across the backyard through the 2 tennis courts and, came through the house.
So you went through the neighbors?
Neighbors, yeah. He had a tennis court, then I had a tennis court.
And you go into the house, and what happens in the house?
I ran upstairs to take a shower. I actually ran upstairs and took some of my bags and came back downstairs and put them out front.
Wow. All right, let me go ahead and switch gear real quick. Hold on. Go ahead and switch to
6 uninterrupted.
Hold on, y'all. Pull up.
Oh boy, I don't know how I ended up here. I just don't know how I ended up here. I thought I lived a great life, but I went out of my way to make everybody comfortable and happy. I felt very lonely at times in recent years. I mean, everybody loved me, but I don't know why I was feeling so alone all the time. And there was things that were happening in my life that I guess caught up to me.
Simpson's image and is now the greatest ever to play the game.
He is the most famous American ever.
charged with murder.
I've had nightmares about hearing her voice tell me he's going to kill it.
Tonight, Simpson's closest friends and confidants break their silence.
It was a very crazy situation.
This is somebody who I've known since I was 7 years old. Just call Uncle OJ.
I never punched her, yes.
You ever strike her?
No.
You ever hurt her?
Yes.
Video and audio tapes reveal the true personality of one of America's most controversial celebrities.
He had this dark, angry, bitter side.
And you could see it in his eyes. And Nicole told me, you don't know what he's capable of.
He loved to control people.
And interviews with Robert Kardashian, one of Simpson's closest friends who stood by him throughout the
From
trial.
day one, I never suspected anything. Well, now what?
That was so shocking to me because I had never heard that before.
I needed to find out the
He
truth.
didn't know how to get out if he wanted to.
Including an audio recording made by Simpson in his darkest hour and kept secret for years.
There was things that caught up to me. I had a great life. Please remember me as a Jew. Please remember me as a good guy. Don't remember me as one of the negative that might end up with.
Let me look into the eyes of O.J. Simpson.
I couldn't kill anyone. I couldn't do it.
Shocking and tragic news from Brentwood, California, as bloody body of Nicole Brown Simpson, ex-wife of football hero O.J. Simpson, was found outside her home. Also found was the body of an unidentified man.
I just turned on the morning news, to get ready for work. And I heard that O.J. Simpson's wife had been murdered. It was just shocking. I was totally in the state of shock. I couldn't imagine what had happened.
Reports also indicate both victims' throats were slashed.
At 6:30 in the morning, I was awakened by horrible, worse than any horror movie scream you've ever heard. Horrific. And then somebody told us that it was on the news. And all I remember is my mom and we were standing in the living room. She was holding my hand and she goes, "That's my kid."
It was like the room started to spin and your heart starts to go. It was so awful. Like you don't even know what's happening.
I walked in the door at the end of the day
Let me bring
and heard my wife scream out,
trying to get that interview.
"Fred, there's somebody on the phone. Something's happened to Ron." And the two of us, my wife and I, stood there
Pull that interview up.
crying our eyes out.
A lot of people finished that interview.
Couldn't possibly have ever imagined
All right, here we
that
go.
would happen
I found
to us.
Well, I felt very upset. I got very upset that she was murdered. And it was the way she
I don't know what just happened.
was murdered. Somebody could put a bullet in you, but it's not as bad as having you almost beheading somebody. When that happened, it was a passion. Somebody did that. Really angry.
I had a great life. I had some great friends. But I love you all. My kids, they'll probably.
I know it because I know the facts better than anyone. Got to do what we got to do.
All right, here we go.
I'm going to tell you a story you've never heard before because no one knows this story the way I know it. It takes place the night of June 12, 1994, and it concerns the murders of my ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her young friend, Ronald Goldman. Forget everything you think you know about that night because I know the facts better than anyone. The story you know or think you know, that's not the story, not even close. This is one story the whole world got wrong.
Tonight, O.J. Simpson is out of jail and a free man. But did he get away with murder? 12 years ago, a shocking interview with publisher Judith Regan.
You reached under the seat for
a knife.
For the first time ever, in O.J.'s own words.
I remember thinking, well, whatever's going over there's got to stop.
Details about the bloody crime scene that seemed like only a killer would know.
You write about removing a glove.
Obviously, I must have because they found the glove there.
And explosive revelations about an accomplice.
Charlie had followed this guy in, then he brought the knife.
Those tapes were lost until now.
And I said, well, you think you can kick my ass? And I remember I grabbed the knife.
We're finally going to hear the answer to the question that has haunted us all. What happened on the night of June 12th, 1994?
I think everything was covered in blood. It was horrible.
Is this his confession? You be the judge.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Soledad O'Brien, and tonight, for the first time ever, you will hear O.J. Simpson put himself at the scene of the murders and tell you, in his own words, what he says might have happened that awful night.
I remember I grabbed the knife. I'm standing there, there's all kind of blood and stuff around.
O.J. was acquitted of the murders, and due to the double jeopardy rule of our criminal justice system, he cannot be tried again for these crimes.
And keep this in mind, this is hypothetical.
Is it a confession to the murder
This,
of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron
2018.
Goldman? Or is this version only hypothetical, as O.J. maintains? You'll have to decide. But there is no doubt that what he says is disturbing, often chilling, and above all, unforgettable.
This is one story.
2018.
The whole world got wrong.
The Los Angeles Police Department sought and obtained a warrant for the arrest of O.J. Simpson for the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Lyle Goldman.
It was a horrific crime that stunned the nation. In 1994, Nicole Brown Simpson, the beautiful ex-wife of a handsome and charismatic American sports hero, was found nearly decapitated on her front steps in LA's exclusive Brentwood neighborhood. Her friend, Ron Goldman, lay nearby after bleeding to death from stab wounds. From the beginning, there was only one suspect in the murders. O.J. Simpson, NFL record-breaking legend considered by many to be one of the greatest running backs of all time. The trial became a national soap opera that delved into uncomfortable questions of celebrity, domestic violence, and most of all, race. Even though the prosecution offered overwhelming evidence to try to place O.J. at the scene of the crime, he was acquitted.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
He's guilty. He's got to live with himself, man.
What did you think of the verdict?
I felt that if there's anything right with the universe, there's no way they can convict me of it.
O.J. sat down with the publisher, Judith Regan, in 2006 for what would be his first and only TV interview about his relationship with Nicole and his movements on her last night alive. Regan and Simpson agreed that he would write a book about the killings that she believed would be a bestseller. It was called If I Did It.
What do you think people are going to think of this book?
Some people say maybe it's blood money. Well, guess what? Every book that was written about this case was blood money.
After the victims' families protested that O.J. should not be allowed to profit from the murders, the book's publication was suspended, and this interview with Simpson never broadcast. Tonight, not only will we show you the never-before-seen interview, but Judith Regan herself is here to tell us what she was thinking while sitting across from O.J. Simpson that night. We'll also be joined by one of Nicole's closest friends, Steve Shakti Chen, and Christopher Darden, famed prosecutor of the criminal trial, as well as a panel of experts who can help evaluate what we are hearing from a man who many Americans believe committed these gruesome murders and who walks free today. But before we listen to O.J. talk about the night of the murders, we first need to hear about the relationship between O.J. and Nicole. Let's go back to the beginning.
I want to talk about the first time you met Nicole Brown.
Yes.
Where was it?
It was right on Rodeo, a place called the Daisy. It's a little breakfast place. I had actually gone there because my first wife, Marguerite, and I had just realized and decided the night before that it wasn't working with us.
O.J. was married to his high school sweetheart, Marguerite Whitley. They had 2 children and a third on the way. At the time he met Nicole, he says his marriage was on the rocks.
Now, we had had a trial separation. We had lived together till June, and we realized it wasn't going to work. But she told me she was pregnant. Geez, what? Here we are. Not, how could you get pregnant? Whatever. And I was so depressed. But it was our anniversary. The next day, over the weekend, would be our anniversary. So I went into Beverly Hills. I bought her a coat for them to deliver it to her. And I ran into a friend of mine. He said, "Let's have breakfast." And when we walked in, this vision turned to me and said, "Where do you want to sit?" And I remember thinking, "What a gorgeous girl." But I can't deal with this. So 3 days later, when I came back, I went back into the Daisy and was having lunch with the owner. And she came back in. And I said, "Man, I would really like to take this girl out." And he called her over and introduced us and said, "Hey, this is one of the good guys."
And you were together from then on?
Well, yeah. Well, I had to take her before we went to the party. I had to explain to her that I was married, but I wasn't married. It sounded like a line. But after we talked, I think she believed me, and we're together ever since.
You courted her for 7 years. You were together 7 years before you got married.
Yeah.
Long courtship.
Yeah. Well, I really wasn't looking to get married. Most guys aren't looking to get married. I had 3 kids. Obviously early on in the marriage, my third daughter was born, my third child, who passed away a couple of years after that. But I wasn't looking to have kids. And then after a few years, she mentioned to me that, she had been helping me when my kids were with us, raise my kids, and she kind of wanted her own, which was a good point to me at the time. But I was still kind of hesitant. And that caused a lot of friction with us. But for the most part, we had a terrific relationship.
You write about the night in 1984 with the baseball bat.
I don't know why this has become such a big deal. This is what bothered me with the media and these stories is I hadn't committed to a wedding date. I think I got engaged, but then I'm do what most guys do,
You put it off.
I'm telling you, well, we get married maybe next summer or stuff. And she had come home and we were talking about it. And we went out front like we often did. And we was talking about what it was. And I was sitting on the front of this. It was actually my car, but I bought it for her. And I had a bat between my legs. And as we're talking, it's bouncing off the tire. And we're just talking. And at one point, it hits the rim. And she says, "If you damage that, you're going to have to pay for it." And I go, "Well, if I pay for that, I guess I have to pay for this too." And I kind of hit the front of her car, So she went in the house. I don't know what she did when she went in the house. But, it's my car. I pay for everything. I pay for everything around here, right?
She knew he had a volatile temper. But Nicole Brown married O.J. anyway, hoping that he would mellow once they started a family.
When you got married, when you finally did it after 7 years, were you fully committed?
Yes, I was.
And she wanted her own children.
Yeah.
You write about that.
As a matter of fact, once we got married, as I pointed out, we went on our honeymoon to get pregnant, and she got pregnant on the honeymoon.
Were you happy about that?
Yeah. At that point, yes.
Their first child was a girl, Sydney, and Nicole basked in motherhood. But for O.J., it meant having to share his wife's attention.
So Nicole has Sydney.
Yes.
What kind of a mother was she? Because you write about this a lot.
She was almost too attentive, if you can be too attentive.
In what
you
way?
couldn't get her to go anywhere. Couldn't go out to dinner because she couldn't leave the kids, and it became a problem. I had worked with Judith Brown, Nicole's mother. We had come up with all kind of schemes to try to get her to leave the kids. And I said, we just need a weekend to go somewhere. And it was almost impossible. If we went out to dinner, she'd be calling back. So she was totally involved in the kids' life. She was a terrific mom.
You write in the book that Nicole changed after your son Justin was born.
Yeah.
In what way did she change?
But she always had to think about her weight, and that became an all-consuming thing, right? Her mother, the first advice her mother gave me, the first night we met, was, "OJ, don't let her put on weight. She's miserable if she puts on weight." So that became a major thing. She had heard rumors of me having an affair or something, which unfortunately was true, and that didn't help the situation at all. The first time we were ever apart was when I went back to New York that fall for NFL Live, visited back and forth. I didn't know it at the time, but she had kind of had a fling herself, you know.
And you also had your flings.
Yeah.
Eve, can I get you a tissue?
Yes, please.
Can we
thank
grab
you.
a tissue, guys? Why does this make you cry?
Just the kids, how much she loved the kids.
Did she want to be a mom?
Oh, gosh, yes. And she was such a great mom. And, you know, just to think that the thing she would have wanted the most was to have seen them grow up. Nicole was an amazing mom. And I think I'm emotional because she would have loved to have watched her kids grow up more than anything else in the world.
What do you make of his demeanor in that opening part of the interview?
I think he's being manipulative, and he's trying to create a story where he's okay in chasing after this 18-year-old. So, oh yeah, it was just the night before when Marguerite and I decided to split up. I doubt that's true, but he's constructed that in his own mind to justify the fact that he's about to pursue an 18-year-old girl, and he's still a married man, and his wife is pregnant.
It's hard. It's hard to think that this wonderful kid could end up in the grasp of, you know, someone who just literally swept her away from us.
Rita Smith joins us. She was the former executive director of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence for more than 20 years. With your experience around domestic violence, what are the things that you saw?
He terrorized her. He sent her a very clear message in my life because he terrorized with me. And obviously I'm bigger. I got more physical with her, which I shouldn't have done. Historically, I just leave, and I didn't just leave. And a little later, my housekeeper came and told me that the cops were outside. And the one thing that hurts me as much as anything in this, you know, besides being considered by some a murderer, is this being a batterer.
Police arriving at the scene describe a bloody and terrified Nicole hiding in the bushes. She ran toward them, screaming that OJ was going to kill her. Her sister took photos documenting Nicole's injuries. It was one of multiple occasions that police responded to Rockingham for a domestic disturbance. This time, OJ would be charged with spousal abuse and sentenced to 120 hours of community service.
She had bruises on her arms and her face.
No, next order, which would be consistent with your wrestling person. She's Nicole. Anybody knows her is a very physical person, a very confrontational person who had gotten into her share fights, you know, with bouncers at clubs and stuff. I made no excuses. I didn't start it, but I made no excuses about my reaction. Nicole admitted that she was the one that initiated all of it, but still, I was the man. I shouldn't have reacted the way I reacted.
Are
no
you sorry?
excuses. Drink. Of course, I was sorry for that. I'm responsible for what I did. You know, I got physical. I was wrong. Nicole had admitted that she initiated it. And somehow I came out of all of that because of that night as the poster boy of an abuser, which the prosecution used against me with their whole total crap about them coming to my house 8 times. Cops had been there for 8 times, which obviously was not true.
Lots to dig in there. Let's start with the prosecution, since he ends those comments with the prosecution.
Yes, the police had been to his house multiple times. We located police officers who had responded to DV calls at the house and hadn't even written a report. I mean, OJ created this environment where, you know, cops could just stop by and have a cup of coffee. Police officers would come to his house and literally, you know, party and just sort of hang out. No police officer was really interested in arresting OJ Simpson for abusing Nicole.
How significant was
OJ
this New
house
Year's Eve incident as you were
Happy
building
house
the
around
case?
that time. Well, Nicole left for us a diary, notes, photographs. She documented the abuse. My sense is that she knew she was going to die, and she wanted to make sure we knew who killed her.
How many instances does she document that you found?
7 or 8, as I recall. And each incident becomes more violent than the last one. We missed a half a dozen opportunities to save her life.
Eve, he says, she's physical, she's confrontational, she was the one who was tussling.
I've never known Nicole to be a person that lost her anger. If anything, she was, as I've said before, she tended to get quiet if she got upset. She was not a confrontational person. You know, she was just battling for her life.
Coming up, he never took the witness stand in his criminal trial. But tonight, for the first time, O.J. Simpson puts himself at the scene of the crime.
You get into a fight, Nicole comes out.
A verbal
fight.
And explains in his own words what might have happened the night of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman's murder.
This guy kind of got into a karate thing. And I said, well, you think you can kick my ass? And I remember I grabbed a knife. It's hard for me to describe it, Kelly. I don't think any 2 people could be murdered the way they were without everybody being covered in blood.
Is this a confession?
You write about removing a glove before taking the knife.
You know, I had no conscious memory of doing that, but obviously I must have because they found the glove there.
You decide.
Man, that's
It's all
crazy
coming
how
up
he confessed.
tonight.
He confessed to the interviews, all that shit.
Welcome back to this extraordinary television
That's
event.
crazy to me,
Tonight
bro.
you are hearing O.J. Simpson from a never-before-seen interview he did in 2006 with publisher Judith Regan.
I'm responsible for what I did. I got physical. I was wrong. Nicole had admitted that she initiated it. And somehow I came out of all of that because of that night as the poster boy of an abuser.
The Simpson marriage was turbulent from the beginning, and things seemed to go from bad to worse. Following the violent New Year's Eve incident, life went on. There were family trips, Christmas celebrations, and an expensive renovation of their Rockingham home. But Nicole's friends and family say she had reached a breaking point after years of physical abuse and infidelity. And in January 1992, she told OJ she wanted a separation.
She didn't really want a divorce. She just wanted to separate. And I pushed it. I said, no, we're going to get lawyers because we'll have at least 10 months to decide if it's going to become a divorce or not. If we want to change our mind, we will. But I'm not going to go through 10 months and then decide to get a divorce and go through 10 more months.
Nicole rented a 4-bedroom house for herself and the children on Gretna Green Way, half a mile from the home she had shared with OJ on Rockingham Avenue.
When she asked for the separation in 1992, you write in the book, I felt like I'd been kicked in the...
Shocking. It was absolutely shocking. Her and her mother had been to New York a few weeks before that. She had talked about how happy she was. She had gotten her body completely back. She was looking great. She was finally wearing all her fancy stuff. Well, I realized, no, it was because she had a boyfriend. I didn't know
That
this at
must
the
have
time.
really got you
Well, I
right.
didn't know she had a boyfriend. Of course it hurts. I didn't think it would happen. And for 2 or 3 months, I pursued her to no end until I saw her with another guy. And at that point, what are you going to do? A girl's with another guy? I mean, you'd be an idiot.
OJ had hoped they would eventually reunite. But with Nicole dating other men, he didn't contest her when she filed for divorce just 2 months after separating. In divorce court, there was testimony about the couple's history of domestic violence.
One of Nicole's therapists said it's no secret Nicole was battered regularly all the time. How do you respond to that?
Well, Nicole made it clear during our divorce, under oath, I might add, that this lady was crazy. She had told me, this lady's crazy. She wants me to say these things about you. And she wouldn't do it. That's why she wouldn't take the stand at our divorce, because they wanted her to say these things to get more money in the divorce. And what people don't realize that under oath, during her deposition, when they asked if I'd ever been physical with her, and this is at a time she's trying to get in my pocket. And this is at a time she's been advised, say this, and it's going to help. But she wouldn't lie. That's the big thing. She wouldn't lie about it. And she told them under oath that that was one incident that I was physical with her.
Was
Can
she
we make a
afraid?
deal? No, she wouldn't lie. It's just that she wouldn't lie. You know, she wasn't going to lie in front of me on the stand.
When
Not
you-
being afraid. It was nothing to be afraid of.
What happened next showed Nicole's fears may have been well-founded. Even as the couple waited for their divorce to be finalized, Nicole's close friends say OJ began stalking her. One incident occurred while she was on a date with Keith Zlomswich, the owner of Mezzaluna, a popular local restaurant.
You write in the book about Keith and that night. Tell me that scene and what happened.
A lot of this I didn't find out until after, right? From her closest friends after my trial, even. I didn't see these people, right? We had once in a while seen each other. She'd come by the house. And so it wasn't like we didn't have relations in the early part of our separation. So I had run into her, which they tried to say was stalking, because her and some friends were at an opening of the restaurant. I was there with like 16 people. So I'm like, if I'm stalking you with my crew. You know, we were all there too, you know. And I saw her and I went over and spoke to her and her group. Then I went out with my group to a party. But on the way home, I'd say, I'll see if she's home. If she's still up, I don't know how late she stayed out. You know, maybe I can get something. In any event, as I approached her front door, she has a window right along the walkway there. I can hear something and I can see movement. And when I look, I can obviously see she was involved in something. I don't know who it's with or what. And I hit the door and left.
When you knocked on the door?
No, I just hit the door.
When you hit
I
the
wanted
door,
them to be alert, be aware that somebody's around and maybe they move or something. That's why I didn't even look. I just hit the door twice and left. It's funny. I realized when I got home, maybe for the first time since we separated, I slept like a baby. It's weird. It's really weird. I think what you do, you worry so much about something like this happening. That's what had me worried. That's what I didn't want to have. That's what I couldn't picture at night. It would make me wake up and I was reading all of these books about how to heal a broken heart. And from that moment on, I was fine with it.
The next morning, OJ returned to Nicole's house to confront her in the presence of her lover. Here's how he describes the conversation.
But the next day we talked about it, and that's when we had promised each other when we separated that one of us was going to get involved with anybody. We would alert the other one.
Right.
She said it was a mistake. We had been drinking and da 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 da. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me that this was the nature of your relationship with this guy?
Jim Clemente joins us. He's retired FBI supervisory special agent and a profiler, and also a former prosecutor for New York City Law Department. It's nice to have you with us. Okay, he starts by saying, almost, it's ridiculous. They called it stalking, and then goes on to specifically describe a stalking incident.
Right. And then he goes on to say that, well, if I was stalking her, I was doing it with my crew. Exactly, because you know how to cover your tracks. You know, happened to be a window there, and I accidentally looked in, and there was something going on. I didn't even look. He saw very intimate details, which he then told Nicole, I know because I saw you doing this.
Doing what?
Having sex, engaged in a sexual act.
Judith, there's a moment where he says, I hit the door, and you say, you knocked on the door, and he said, I hit the door. And I was curious, I felt like you almost gave him an out to say knock.
I feel that he hangs himself on every word. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to sit there, ask him a question, not appear to be judgmental, and the way he describes it gives it away.
Were you worried, Judith, that if you
wild
push
for
back, he
that
might just get up and go?
Oh, he wanted to go. He wanted to go, and he would have left, and he would not have opened up. And he started actually showing his true colors.
Have you seen the interview?
I haven't seen the interview, ever.
No one has seen this interview before. Obviously, O.J. Simpson had nothing to do with this project. He was not part of it, editorially not part of it, was not paid to be part of it in any way, shape, or form. I'm curious what you think his reaction will be when he sees this interview that he did with you, Judith, back in 2006.
You're going to hate it.
He's going to hate it.
He's going to hate it.
Nicole was actively dating, and so was OJ. He had women coming and going, including the day after catching Nicole with someone else.
The next day is I called a friend of mine, a wine-tropic girl that I met from the past and who I'd run into, and she said, I heard you and your wife were apart. And I said, well, sort of. And I said, well, I'll call you. And I called her. I was going to get some. Right? Finally, after this, at any event, she came over, and we were upstairs, and there was somebody at my housekeeper say, Marcus, Catherine, they're at the door. They had been trying to fix me up with this one model, and she was out of town, but they had brought her best friend over to talk to me. When I walked downstairs, it was Paula Barbieri. Paula was shocked when the girl came down. The girl, she said, was beautiful. But her and I just hit it off. I mean, we just hit it off, and we spoke on the phone because she traveled a lot for a month. And about a month later, we really became involved. And
Paula Barbieri would become OJ's on and off girlfriend for the next 2.5 years, staying with him throughout the murder trial. But he says that even as he got serious with Paula, he never stopped talking to Nicole.
What happened during that time? You start dating Paula, and you write about Nicole's reaction to your dating Paula.
It's funny because she was dating various people, and she would call me and talk to me about it. And, you know, it started to reach a point where it became irritating. It became a problem because one minute she'd call me and I give her advice, and then she'll call out of the blue because of something real stupid and give me a hard time, right? So I had made up my mind that I really didn't want her to call me unless it had to do with the kids, and it was kind of irritating to Paula, also.
To have
why are you talking to your ex-wife about our relationship? You just say, why are you talking to her about her boyfriends? She got pregnant during that period of time and called me, not to ask what to do, but I think you just needed somebody to talk to.
Did you feel at that time that you still had love for her, affection for her?
I still had love. See, I had been with her at that time for 14, 15 years. I felt she was the love of my life. Even though we were splitting, she was the love of my life. And I never even really thought it was over. Even after we split the last time, I knew her and I would always have this in our lives that we would cross. You know, it just was the nature of our relationship.
You said that she got pregnant. Was she pregnant by you at the time?
No, whoever she was dating. I don't want to say the guy's name because I don't know for sure. But
did that upset you?
No.
She said, I don't want to say the guy's name.
Now, you write...
Something I didn't need to know. At that time, Paul and I was sort of figuratively written off into the sunset.
OJ says to appease Paula and focus exclusively on their new relationship, he cut off all contact with Nicole.
I was living in New York half the year, and I happened to be in LA, and the phone rang, and I picked it up. It was her, and I had successfully avoided her for a month and a half, 2 months, right? And she says, hi, and hey, how you doing? And why are you avoiding me? I said, look, it's not that I'm avoiding you. I just don't want to hear the stuff. And she said she needed to speak to me, and I finally said, okay, speak. No, I need to talk to you to speak to you. And I said, you know, look, let me call you back. I got to take this other call, which was no call. I went back to sleep. Shortly after that, my kids ran into the house and ran in and gave me a hug and gave me a letter as well as tapes of our wedding, and ran out to their playground that I built for them in the front. And when I went out to be with the kids, she was there. So I figured I can't keep avoiding her. Right? So I went over and said, okay, what do you want to do? Let's take a walk. So, 2, 3 steps. She said, I want to come home. You know, I miss you. I love you. And I was like, how could you love me? You haven't seen me. We barely seen each other the last 8, 9 months. And what do you mean you love me? She said, well, I never told you I didn't love you. I said, yeah, but you said you weren't in love with me. I'm sure a lot of guys have heard this, right? And it made no sense, but I kind of let her know that I wasn't interested in getting back together. But I did think we should spend time together with the kids, which I would do when Paula was out of town, right?
OJ claimed it was for the kids that he and Nicole began to spend more time together. But sometimes just the two of them went out alone. He recalls one evening that would change everything.
She was alone and she looked lonely. And I said, let's go have a bite to eat. I was telling her about Marcus Allen's fiance, Catherine, who was getting married. I was hosting their wedding at my house. And Nicole was crying. And then it got to the point, I said, well, it can't be that sad, right? And she said that Marcus was not my friend.
Oh, what's up, OG
Patrice?
Patrice?
Then kind of down on me. I said, something happened with you and Marcus? And she said, yes. And I said, check. Can I have a check, please? When I asked her, why did you tell me this? She said, well, he keeps calling. He won't leave me alone. And I said, well, threatened to tell Catherine. How
did you feel about Marcus Allen? This was your friend.
Well, Marcus came over when he came back in town and apologized. My lawyers were very upset with me that I hadn't told them that because they said, these guys are trying to paint you as a jealous, crazy guy. And did this really happen? I said, yeah, it happened. Everybody knew it happened. And Nicole's best friends knew it happened.
To this day, Marcus Allen denies that he ever slept with Nicole, but OJ insists that he did.
How did that make you feel?
That night ended, well, hey, I wasn't married to her. I thought it was wrong because she had always been, really, honestly, she had always been the moral compass of our group of friends. I was a little baffled. And that night, actually, after I dropped her off, something really kind of happened that night that started my downfall as I think about it, but I prefer not to talk about it here.
What happened?
Right now. I really don't want to talk about it here. I really don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened, OJ claims, is that he and Nicole slept together, which he wrote in the book was like an addict having a relapse. The couple, now divorced, agreed to continue living apart, but try to reconcile. For the next few months, sometimes he spent the night at her place, sometimes she at his. But the calm didn't last.
911 emergency. Can you get someone over here now to 325 Gretna Green? He's back. Okay, what does he look like? He's O.J. Simpson. Wait a minute, we're seeing the police. What is he doing? Is he threatening you? Going nuts.
OJ had heard a rumor that sent him into a jealous rage. That Nicole had been hosting parties where there were drugs and group sex.
if she was being influenced by drugs or anything, maybe she might have been making the wrong decision. I just know I didn't want any of these people around my kids.
Okay, has he threatened you in any way, or is he just harassing you? You're going to hear him in a minute. He's about to say, okay, just stay on the line. I'm going to beat this. Wait a minute, just stay on the line so we can know what's going on until the police get there, okay? Okay, Nicole?
Doing that 911 tape that everybody hears me yelling, I'm saying I don't want these girls around my kids. And that's the only thing that argument on that 911 tape was about. I went to her house and I read her about riot act.
What does he say? Okay, the kids are thinking. Just stay on the line, okay?
I did what any father and would do. And yet, you know, people listen to that tape and made me this horrible person. Whenever they hear that 911 tape, can you believe he's yelling at her about this? Well, when the cops came, it became apparent. She said, I was yelling to her about this and only this. That's the only reason I was there, reading her the riot act, because I don't want these people around my kids.
Let's talk about the 911 tape. How did you think about that tape for evidence in the trial?
You know, we knew what the motive was. We knew it was jealousy. We knew it was control. And we knew that he had the capability of killing her. If you're going to come in yelling, being threatening, being physical, kicking in doors and damaging, you know, the wall or the walls in the house while the children are there.
But framing it as, I'm only here to protect the children. Right.
Exactly. And doing so much more harm to the children. She could have been killed that day.
He doesn't say to you, Judith, what really happened, which is he kicks in the door. He breaks down the door to get inside the house. And all the yelling that we hear on that 911 tape is because he's pushed himself into a house that is not his and gotten access.
And again, he's there stalking and terrorizing her, you know, in the most egregious way. And yet he describes it as looking out for his children.
Was O.J. Simpson a good father?
I don't know how you call yourself a good dad if you commit acts of violence or threaten violence in the presence of your children. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to put him at a -1.
For the next 7 months, the couple resumed their relationship, walking the red carpet at a movie premiere, showing up at an NFL game, and going on family vacation with Bruce and Kris Jenner. But Nicole was exhausted. She told her close friends that she was finally done with O.J., but he wasn't done with her.
Up next, O.J. describes what might have happened the night Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were brutally murdered.
And Nicole was nuts that week. I mean, it's just craziness.
It's a story he hasn't told before.
I don't think any two people could be murdered the way they were without everybody being covered in blood.
I think he's confessed to murder.
And one you will never forget.
It was absolutely horrible.
It's crazy.
Welcome back to O.J. Simpson, The Lost Confession. Let's listen as O.J. Simpson describes what he did on the night his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman were savagely murdered. Nicole, now 35 years old, made a decision that the unhealthy cycle between her and O.J. had to stop. On May 22nd, 3 weeks before her murder, Nicole returned an expensive birthday gift that O.J. had given her, telling friends, I broke up with him. I finally feel free. I told him I can't be bought. On June 10th, she went property hunting in Malibu, hoping to put some distance between herself and the man who wouldn't let her go. 2 days later, she would be dead. You are about to hear O.J. Simpson talk about what he did on the day his ex-wife was murdered.
Let's talk about the day of June 12th, 1994.
Yeah.
Tell me about getting ready for your daughter's recital. Just take me through the day.
It was a long week. I had been to 3 or 4 cities that week. I was totally exhausted. My friends in New York tried to get me to stay in New York that Friday, play golf Saturday, and then go straight to Chicago where I had to be Monday morning. But my daughter was having a recital, and I had already missed, I think the week or two before, I was out of town, and I missed something. I forget what it was, something that my daughter was having. So I couldn't miss this. So I said, I got to be there for the recital. And I flew into town, and I just wanted to go there, see my daughter, and leave. And I talked to Nicole briefly that day. She had called and asked if I could get there early and hold seats. And I said, I don't think so. Which she did. And when we got to the recital, she had actually held me a seat with her and the 2 kids. Right.
There was something that you write in the book about what Nicole was wearing.
You know, it was almost like she was trying to be a teenager again. You know, dating all these much younger guys, wearing the shortest, tightest thing she was wearing. And sometimes you think something's inappropriate, but you don't say anything. What am I to say? Tell her what to do, you know?
So you're at the recital.
Yeah, I was just exhausted, but everything was cool. And during one of the breaks, Dr. Fisherman pulled me aside, and Cora Fisherman is Nicole's best friend. His my daughter's best friend to this day. And Dr. Fisherman said, man, Juice, you won't believe what's going on. These girls, he is telling me that they had fights, and Nicole was nuts that week, right? I mean, it was like, what are these girls doing? I mean, it's just craziness, what they were saying. I said, man, get away from them. I tell you, these girls, whatever's going on is bad, you know? And this comes right after a week previous to this. Her best friend, Cora, had come to my house in tears, begging me to do something to get Nicole away from the people she was hanging around. Somehow the prosecution didn't want that in the case, right? I don't know. I was upset. It upset me.
The Brown family, Nicole's parents and sisters, were also at the recital, and there were plans for a family dinner afterwards at Mezzaluna, that local Italian restaurant. They recall O.J. asking to come along, but Nicole said no.
What kind of frame of mind
OG
are you in when you
I'm
read
tired.
Suicidal?
I am
I don't
tired.
know.
Irritable?
I don't want to sleep. I'm irritable. When you get tired, you get irritable.
And you write about chipping golf balls into the neighbor's yard. You write, usually when I pick up golf balls, the world disappears, but this time I couldn't get her out of my head.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my kids and what Dr. Fishman mentioned to me.
What comes next is OJ's hypothetical account of what he says happened on the night of the murders. So, Judith, how did you shape this conversation around the hypothetical? Why hypothetical?
He felt that if he could claim that it was hypothetical at this point, he would have deniability with the children. That was what he said. But from my point of view, who would possibly do this, even as a hypothetical, unless they had committed the murders?
O.J. Simpson never took the stand at his criminal trial and has never given an interview about his actions on the night of the murders. That is, until now. Listen closely for the next 6 uninterrupted minutes. O.J. puts himself hypothetically at the scene of the crime.
The chapter 6, is called The Night in Question. And you write in the book, now picture this and keep in mind that this is
Purely
hypothetical.
Yes.
Why don't you tell me what might have happened on the night of June 12th, 1994? And let's just walk through the night.
Well, first of all, this is very difficult for me to do this. It's very difficult for me because it's hypothetical. I know and I accept the fact that people are going to feel whatever way they're going to feel. They're going to, whatever they want to feel. In the book, the hypothetical is
Charlie pulls out.
Charlie. This guy Charlie shows up, the guy who I used to become friends with, and I don't know why you didn't buy the Cole's house, but it told me you wouldn't believe what's going on over there. And I remember thinking, well, whatever's going on over there has got to stop, right? So we kind of hooked up together, and I'm kind of broad stroking this. We go over, get into Bronco and go over.
Let's just go back and do the details. Where did you park?
The detail.
You park
in the hypothetical in the alley.
You park in the alley.
Yeah.
And you put on a wool cap and gloves.
In the hypothetical, I put on a cap and gloves.
Right. Yeah. And you reached under the seat for
a knife. I always kept a knife in that car for the crazies and stuff because you can't travel with a gun. And I remember Charlie saying, "You ain't bringing that." And I didn't, right? But I believe he took it.
Charlie took the knife?
Yeah. In the book.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the back gate, you go through the back gate.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And it was open or broken or?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I go to the front and I'm looking to see what's going on. And I can see that it appears like Nicole I had candles all the time. She really did to keep her overhead down, I think. And music was on. And while I was there, a guy shows up.
So Ron Goldman comes in the back gate.
Yeah, a guy I really didn't recognize. I may have seen him around, but I really didn't recognize him to be anyone. And in the mood I was in, I started having words with him.
He says to you, "I just came by to return a pair of glasses. Judy left them at the restaurant."
Yeah, words to that effect, yes.
And
I don't know if I believed it or didn't believe it. It was pretty much immaterial because, I was more concerned about everything that was going on, and was fed up with it, I guess. And
you get into a fight. Nicole comes out.
A verbal
fight.
Got a little loud, and by that time, Nicole had come out, and we started having words about who is this guy, why is he here, what's going on.
And she says, "This is my house. Get the F out of here."
Yes, and which I didn't like because, once again, this is the same person. And if you read the book, you'll see some things that happened in the 2 weeks leading up to this that were very, very irritating. And I think Charlie had followed this guy in, wanted to make sure there was no problem. Then he brought the knife. As things got heated, I just remember Nicole fell and hurt herself. And this guy kind of got into a karate thing. And I said, "Well, you think you can kick my ass?" And I remember I grabbed the knife. I do remember that portion, taking the knife from Charlie. And to be honest, after that, I don't remember. Except I'm standing there and there's all kind of stuff around.
Bro, this is crazy to me, bro.
What kind of stuff?
Blood and stuff around. I hate to say this, but this is hypothetical. I'm sorry. I know we got to back up again.
Bro, this nigga literally said he pulled out the knife, had the gloves on. Bro, this is crazy. OJ wild for this interview, first of all. He's wild for this interview. But this nigga just admitted you can't charge him with double jeopardy. I mean, he was already acquitted for the jump, bro. But the confession after this is crazy to me, bro.
Okay, I'm gonna back up. This is hard. I'm gonna back up to
crazy.
You wrote in the book, "I had never seen so much blood in my life." You're covered. The scene. Can you describe it?
It's hard for me to describe it. I'm telling you, I don't think any two people could be murdered the way they were without everybody being covered in blood. And of course, I think we've all seen the grisly pictures after. So yeah, I think everything would have been covered in blood.
OJ wild as hell for this, John, bro.
And what goes through your mind at a time like that?
I don't know. It's like, what happened?
You write about removing a glove before taking the knife from Charlie.
I had no conscious memory of doing that, but obviously I must have because they found the glove there.
And blacking out. Have you ever blacked out before?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
No.
And
Of course, if something like this would take place in anybody's life, if it were to happen, I would imagine it's something that you would probably automatically have trouble wrapping your mind around it. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
First thoughts. Eve, it's hard for you to even breathe. I've been watching you as you watch this.
I have nothing to say about this. Absolutely nothing.
Chris.
Well, I think he's confessed to murder. I think he's confessed to murder. And if I'd known he said this in 2006, I would not have objected to the release of his video. I don't think that there's any question of his involvement and that he is the person who is wielding the knife. I mean, he may try and describe it as a hypothetical, but of course, it becomes I did this, I felt this, I saw this. This notion of Charlie, I think Charlie is OJ. This is no hypothetical, this is reality.
Judith, who the heck is Charlie?
I don't know who Charlie is. I wanted him to talk. For me to start interrogating him and pushing him, I felt he would get more agitated, and he kept threatening to leave and not to finish the interview, and I really wanted him to stay.
Let's listen again to this disturbing portion of the interview.
I remember I grabbed the knife. I do remember that portion, taking the knife from Charlie. And to be honest, after that, I don't remember, except I'm standing there and there's all kind of stuff around and
What kind of stuff?
blood and stuff around.
I think,
OJ
and Eve, I'm
crazy,
sorry,
bro.
but I
It's
do
crazy.
want to go
Yeah.
through what the coroner says happened, because I think it's important to understand the specific details. It was not, as he describes.
So he basically saying he blacked out at the scene, you know what I'm saying, of the crime. He basically saying he blacked out. He don't know, remember what happened. All he noticed that he came to again, and then there was just a lot of blood everywhere. And he was standing there with the knife in his hand. Yo, OJ crazy as hell to admit to this stuff years after the trial, bro. That is crazy. And this interview was from 2006, but they didn't release it till 2018. They sat on this interview from 2006 and released it 2018. So this is all the people reacting to it. The person that did the interview, the prosecutor sitting there, and they all just reacting to the damn interview. It's crazy, bro.
Exactly. Nicole didn't fall. She was hit on the head with the handle of the knife, according to the coroner. She was stabbed 4 times in the neck as she lay on the ground. Ron Goldman arrived, runs towards her. He's grabbed by the killer, who jabs him in the face 5 times with a knife and then slits his throat. He gets loose, but there's a perimeter fence, so he's blocked. And so the killer is able to catch him again and plunges a knife into his side, and he severs his abdominal artery. There are defensive wounds on his hand, so he was trying to protect himself. And the killer alternated between the victims, pulling Nicole's head by the hair and cutting very deeply into her throat. And then going back over to Ron Goldman, who, according to the coroner, was probably dead at that point, and stabbing him. Your office described it as overkill at the time. Those details, I think, matter because they go to the viciousness of what happened that night.
37 years in criminal law, I've never seen a crime scene as horrific as this one.
Do you think this is a confession, Judith?
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. How he chose to do it is the way he chose to do it, but he did it. And that's his confession.
Here you are. You have it. He's telling you, I took off a glove. I must have left my glove there.
Let's listen again to the interview.
You write about removing a glove before taking the knife from Charlie.
I had no conscious memory of doing that, but obviously I must have, because they found the glove there.
25 years of nonsense. And now here he is to explain to all of the naysayers and all of the...
So basically, Charlie is like a phrase they use for like in the war, they used to say Charlie, like Charlie. That's like, so OJ's basically saying he was there with Charlie, and I mean, Charlie had the knife and he took the knife back from Charlie. Even regardless if OJ didn't do the stabbings himself, he definitely was there with somebody that did it. You know what I mean? And that's the person he referring to as Charlie. That's crazy, bro. OJ wild as hell to do this, even do this interview like that, bro.
That's my glove. I left it. Nobody planted it.
They must have paid that.
Nobody
He must have needed that.
You sound
He must
curious about
he must have needed that money, because that nigga did this interview. They definitely paid this nigga to do this interview. I don't know how much they paid him, but they definitely paid him.
Last 25 years.
Well, she should be furious. Denise Bowman's, they should be furious. You know, I'm watching TV one day and I see Kanye West wearing a T-shirt and says, free OJ. Well, you freed him. And look what you freed.
Coming up, what happened with the bloody clothes?
In the book, you describe taking off your shoes, your pants, and your shirt and dropping it in a bundle. Do you remember that?
There are 3 sources of blood there: Ron's, Nicole's, and OJ's.
For the first time, he tells us all the shocking details.
Where are the bloody clothes? So somebody had to get rid of the bloody clothes.
Next.
Damn, bro.
Welcome back to this never-before-seen interview, in which O.J. Simpson has already revealed staggering first-hand details about the crime scene, which he says are hypothetical.
You wrote in the book, I had never seen so much blood in my life.
Yes. It's hard for me to describe it, I'm telling you. I don't think any 2 people could be murdered the way they were without everybody being covered in blood.
Then you see bloody footprints and you decide to take off.
Yes. Actually, I believe Charlie kept saying, we got to get out of here.
And in the book, you describe taking off your shoes, your pants, and your shirt and dropping it in a bundle. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And do you remember what
Because
happened
what are you going to do with it? You know, somebody's got to get rid of, as you may have called during the trial, it said, where are the bloody clothes? So somebody had to get rid of the bloody clothes.
Right. And you had left your keys and wallet in your pants pocket, and you had to go back and get it?
You know, to be honest, I think, I know that to be true, yes. Yes.
And Charlie is hysterical, screaming, Jesus Christ, OJ, Jesus Christ. And you tell him to shut up.
He's in a panic. He was in a panic. And I'm telling him to shut up. Let's get out of here.
So you get back in the car, you take in your clothes, put them in the bundle.
And drove back and parked a block away because I knew the limo would be there, and came across the backyard.
How we know Charlie wasn't AC?
And, came through the house.
So you went through the neighbors.
Neighbors, yeah. He had a tennis court, then I had a tennis court.
And you go into the house, and what happens in the house?
I ran upstairs to take a shower. I actually ran upstairs and took some of my bags and came back downstairs and put them out front.
OJ was due to catch a late flight to Chicago, where he was scheduled to play in a Hertz golf tournament the next day.
And then I get dressed and I come back down.
And then you get in the car and go to the airport.
That's correct.
You sign autographs?
Yeah.
And you wrote in the book that you were asleep before the plane took off.
Virtually, yeah.
Early the next morning, OJ was awakened in his Chicago hotel room by a call from the LAPD.
When did you cut your finger?
To my knowledge, really, when I got the call the next morning, and this is the truth, when I got the call the next morning saying that Nicole had been murdered, was killed, was dead. I kept saying, what do you mean dead? Killed, or whatever the words they use. I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we can't tell you anything. We're still investigating, but where are you? And when can you get back here? And I think I actually went in the bathroom and it was dawning on me. I didn't really throw a glass. I just was, and when I was putting it down, it just smashed,
Police believed that the cuts on OJ's hand probably came from the fingernails of one of his victims.
I went downstairs. I was bleeding at that point. I went downstairs and asked the lady on the desk for Band-Aid. And I knew that I signed so many autographs, and even when I arrived the night before, there was people, and I signed autographs, and I knew I wasn't bleeding in any way at that point, but I knew when I was leaving I was. And I ran to the airport, and I ended up forcing my way on a plane. It was sold out, and somehow I told them that my wife had died, and I got to get out of here, and they got me on.
You write in the book about speaking with Nicole's mother and her sister, Denise.
Yeah.
Do you remember what that conversation was?
I think Denise yelled at me something once.
Yeah. You wrote in the book that Denise yelled at you, you brutal son of a bitch, you
Yeah,
killed her,
something
I
like
know
that.
you killed her.
Yeah.
And what did you say to her?
I hung up. Yeah. Denise and I never really had much of a but then again, she didn't have much of a thing with Nicole. There was a lot of jealousy there.
Let's start at the beginning. And Chris, since you know this timeline of the crime so well, what do you make of O.J. Simpson's version of what happened next?
What people need to remember about that crime scene is that there are 3 sources of blood there. 3 sources of DNA on those bodies, and in that Bronco, and it's Ron's, it's Nicole's, and it's OJ's. So when he says that he didn't begin to bleed until he got to Chicago, that's a complete lie.
And then when he talks about the cut finger, he says, now this is the truth.
Right.
I'm curious what that signaled to you.
When somebody's speaking the truth, they're just conveying information. Somebody who's lying has to then convince you that this lie is true, so you'll get overselling.
I wanted to ask you, Eve, at the end of that segment, he says Nicole and Denise didn't have much of a relationship, and then takes a dig and says jealousy.
She's always been protective of Nicole. They were Mutt and Jeff growing up. There's no such thing as jealousy between the two. That's just laughable.
So then what's the point of saying that? Right? He goes out of his way to take a dig at Denise.
Well, because, Denise was one of the folks pointing the finger of guilt at him. So, it's just a little payback. That's just the kind of guy he is.
So the police now are obviously eager to interview O.J. Simpson, and he heads back to Los Angeles. We're going to hear what he says happened next. Take a look.
So you get back to L.A.
I get back to L.A. and now we're out of hypotheticals here.
Right.
I get back to L.A. and my lawyer and my assistant pick me up at the airport, and we're driving. And my lawyer wants me to go to his office. We need to get to the office. We need to discuss what's going on? And I said, no, I spoke to the police officer, and he told me they needed to see me and for me to get home as quick as I can. And I said, no, I said, take me to the house. And they said, come on, OJ, we need to sit down and discuss. I said, I don't care, get me to the house. So when we got to the house, there was media everywhere. We pulled up to the Rockingham gate. I jumped out, went to the gate. There was a uniformed officer there and told me he had to handcuff me. I said, handcuff me for what? They said, well, I'm sorry, I got my orders.
Now, the cops wanted to interview you, and Howard Weitzman says Mr. Simpson is in no condition to talk right now, and you say no.
I said, they need my help to find who did this. I don't care. And I've read, I'm a voracious reader. Everybody knows I go through 2-3 books a week. Now I'm reading all this fiasco stuff, but political stuff. But normally I read mystery books. And I know, don't talk to the Lord, don't talk to him, And if you talk to him, you got to make sure it's recorded. So I told him, no, I will talk to him. I'll do anything I could do to help them solve this case.
Yeah. And you said in there, I needed to know what they knew.
Yeah. I mean, I need them to tell me something. Nobody told me anything. All right. So nobody told me anything. I don't know what they know. They're giving me this runaround. In any event, I spoke to them. I told them what I knew. I told them everything about myself that they asked, answered all their questions.
Do you have any problems with it later, have you? Okay. Always have problems with it. That's our relationship. It's been a profound relationship.
Despite being briefly handcuffed, OJ was not under arrest. And after being questioned by detectives at police headquarters, he was released into the custody of his attorneys.
Okay, you a suspect? David, I told you before he wasn't going to say anything. I know you got to ask the question, but give us a break here.
What was the hardest thing for you at that time? That you write in the book that you couldn't believe that people thought you were a murderer?
It was hard to believe that it seemed so easy listening to TV that week that it was that easy for people to believe that I could kill 2 people. I thought that my whole life meant something. I thought the type of guy that I lived my life being pretty upstanding guy. I mean, like everybody had my faults, like most men in my position. Sometimes temptations of the flesh is there, But for the most part, I've always thought I was a straight shooter. Mm-hmm. In any event, that was hard for me to accept that it was so easy for people to believe that.
With his house at Rockingham under virtual siege from the media, OJ sought refuge at the home of his good friend Robert Kardashian, where he was reunited with his children.
I want to talk about what you said to your kids the first time you saw them after the murders.
Well, I had asked Judy Brown not to tell the kids. I felt that was my place to tell my kids. I had to sneak out of my house the next day because it was like Troy, like the siege of Troy there. And Lawyer was able to get me out of the house. And Al Collins had gotten my kids, and we had met up on Mulholland Street Drive, and we were going to go to Bob Kardashian's home. And I just recall my kids getting out of the car and running across this Mulholland Drive and jumping in my arms. And I was trying to just find the right time to tell them, right? And right before it was time to go to bed, I read them a story, and I started to tell them about Mom. I wanted to tell them that the mother had gone to heaven. But they simply said, no, I know Dad, Mom's in heaven. And I think I was in shock up to that point, but I think that moment is when I broke down. I mean, literally broke down. Because the way she said it, it was not like, it was sort of sad, but not, she had no idea that she had lost her mother. She had no idea how this was going to affect her life. She had no idea that, it was almost like Sweet Mom's in heaven, And I knew that this would have a profound effect on her life. And I think that was the first time that that the pain was almost unbearable.
I want to talk about the wake. And you're right, I was so out of it that I actually remember thinking, a wake for whom? Who died?
Yeah, I mean, they had put these drugs in me. And they tell me I would sleep all the way there. I don't even remember, like the funeral. I always tell everybody, I don't remember the funeral. I see pictures of Sydney and I kissing.
Seeing Nicole leaning over and kissing her.
Yeah,
Can you tell me that story?
Yeah. Well, no, it was tough. I just remember seeing her there. And I still had so many feelings of, if you're angry with a person upon their death, when they die, it's not like their anger disappears, right? And because of the 911 call, when I'm yelling at her about what's going on, it was almost like I want to say, I told you, didn't I tell you? Didn't I say to you? It's whatever the hell was going on, you know what I mean? So you still got those kind of feelings in you, and you still are trying to deal with, I'm not going to be able to say this to this person. I'm never going to be able to change this person's mind. I'm never going to have an effect on this person again.
What did you say to her when you leaned over and kissed her?
I don't know if I said anything, to be honest with you. I'm told that some person said they heard me say, I'm sorry. I just recall Judy Brown pulling me over, looking me in the eye and saying to me, OJ, did you have anything to do with this? And I know I told her no.
Okay, so a lot to dig in on that. One of the most chilling things is he's so angry, talking about an incident that happened 7 months earlier. That 911 call is 7 months before the funeral. And he's reciting it as, I told you, didn't I?
Right. And he's saying, I'll no longer be able to affect this person or to change this person's mind. That's what he's saying as he's standing over his dead ex-wife's body. He's not thinking about the brutal way she was killed, the suffering. All he's talking about is his anger and his inability to further control her. And when he says, didn't I tell you, didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you I'd kill your ass if you didn't do what I told you to do?
It really sounded like he was saying that, right?
Yeah. Again, he blames her, and he's angry at her that he's still angry. And he what he's essentially saying is that, after you kill someone, you think the anger would go away, but it didn't. I was still angry. He's still angry at her.
Absolutely. Control. He had lost control, and so he did what he always said he would do. He killed her. Now he has no control.
It didn't resolve anything for him.
No.
Coming up,
I can't believe what I'm seeing.
a nation stands still to watch a celebrity on the run.
I was being depicted as a fugitive on the radio. Hey, man, listen to what they're saying about me.
What was OJ really thinking inside the Bronco?
I was so depressed at that point, and I was having, I would say, probably suicidal thoughts.
Next.
Welcome back to O.J. Simpson, The Lost Confession. While O.J. spent most of his last week as a free man holed up at the house of his good friend Robert Kardashian, his attorneys negotiated his surrender to police. It was agreed that O.J. would turn himself in at 11 a.m. on June 17th, 5 days after the brutal murders. But O.J. would never show up.
There's a warrant issued for your arrest. When you find out about this, what do you do?
Well, once again, I was so depressed at that point, and I was having, I would say, probably suicidal thoughts. All I know is I wanted to see where she was buried, and I wanted the pain to stop.
O.J.'s childhood friend, Al Cowlings, known as AC, arrived at the Kardashians expecting to drive O.J. to police headquarters.
It was at that time that we discovered for the first time that O.J. was not present. Al Cowlings was not present.
And then I told AC, they were waiting to take me to the jail. I said, AC, take me to her gravesite. Then when we got in the car,
I want to go through that.
I actually said, take me to her house, but when we got there were cops everywhere, so I said, take me to her gravesite.
Why did you want to go to her house?
I don't know. That's when she was last alive. That's, I hadn't seen it, but I do know I wanted to see where she was buried. I knew I was going to have to, I just knew this was going to be a long ordeal. I was in so much pain, I just wanted it to stop. I didn't think I could bear it. And I kept saying, I can't be locked in a cell right now. My kids need me right now. And I just wanted the pain to stop. So I said, take me to her gravesite with a lot of thoughts as we were going down there and talking to AC as we went down there.
What did you say?
Just talked about life and, remember that time, and stuff like that,
3 hours after the deadline for surrender had passed, the LAPD held a press conference announcing that O.J. Simpson, having failed to turn himself in, was now officially a fugitive.
The Los Angeles Police Department right now is actively searching for Mr. Simpson.
O.J.'s attorneys held their own press conference to read from a startling note that O.J. had handed his friend Robert Kardashian before getting into the car with AC.
To whom it may concern. First, everyone understand I have nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her, always have, and always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much.
In the note that you left with Bob Kardashian, you write, if we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much. Can you tell me what that means?
I loved her to know him, and always loved her. I think what happened, it became reverse of what she said to me when she wanted a divorce. I loved her, but I didn't like her. I wasn't in love with her. That's what she had said to me, to get a divorce. And I kind of, that's where we were at the time of her death. I loved her, but I wasn't in love with her, and to some degree, I didn't really like her.
Don't feel sorry for me. I've had a great life, great friends. Please think of the real O.J. and not this lost person. Thanks for making my life special. I hope I helped yours. Peace and love, O.J.
I want to talk about other things that you wrote in that note,
Yes,
if we
okay.
can. Please think of the real O.J. and not this lost person.
Well, if I'm going to commit suicide, you are certainly not a person who is together. At that stage in my life, if I'm going to commit suicide, I am obviously, not the person that I wanted people to know me to be, that I felt that I was. So, I thought I'd always been a pretty good guy. I don't think any athlete that ever had the goodwill of the public that I had. I mean, certainly no better than the goodwill that I had had. And in 3 short days, from Monday to Friday, or 4 short days, just listening to the TV screens, to see all that goodwill evaporated.
Did you feel lost?
In many ways, it's almost like you were, Ron and Nicole were physically dead, and it's almost like they killed me. Who I was attacked and murdered also in that short period of time. And once again, I to this day, it bugs me that it seems that people wanted me to be guilty, and that really, really bothers me.
By late afternoon, the search for O.J. had made television history. Local stations deployed choppers to hunt for the white Bronco, and when they found it, the nation was transfixed.
This is a special report from ABC News.
Hi, Peter Jennings at ABC News headquarters. Let's immediately go to a picture in Los Angeles. We're interrupting 2020.
The major TV networks went into special report mode, breaking into regularly scheduled programming, even interrupting the NBA Finals.
We will send it to NBC News. Here's Tom Brokaw.
Thank you, Marvin. We are looking once again at pictures of Al Cowlings' cars that makes its way along a freeway in Los Angeles in the south central part of that area. And we are told by the California Highway Patrol that O.J. Simpson is in that car holding a gun to his head.
100 million Americans, virtually half the country, were glued to their televisions.
The vehicle is registered to Al Cowling, a former teammate, close friend of O.J. Simpson's, who is a fugitive from justice now.
For more than 2 hours, Al Cowlings navigated 75 miles of L.A. freeways with his old friend hunkered down in the back.
Driver of the Bronco indicates the subject is in the vehicle and he is armed. He has a gun to his head. All units stay back.
want to go back to the Bronco, and if you can just give me some of the details of what you said to each other and some of the...
Well, going there, it wasn't a lot of conversation, but basically it was just...
You had a gun?
Yeah, but it was in the bag in the back at that point with the pictures and stuff. The police like to say it was with a passport. I always had my passport there. They said I had $10,000. I think I had like $3 or something to change. As a matter of fact, when I was let out of jail, after my trial, and they were giving me all my things back, all the stuff that was in the Bronco that was mine back, I said, where's the $10,000? Where's my $10,000 that you guys claimed that I had, right? Which was totally false. In any event...
What are you thinking? You're in the car.
I'm in the back of the, still in the back of the truck, and I can't believe what I'm seeing, because every time we go by intersections, it's like, where did these people get the time to make these signs, go OJ and stuff? And what was strange is I was being depicted as a fugitive on the radio, but from the side of the roads, it was more people cheering.
OJ says what made him snap out of it and decide to bring the chase to a close was pride.
I just remember listening to the radio, which I think was Dan Rather. It really saved my life.
Right.
Because when he said that OJ had a history, police were at their house all the time, 8 or 9 times. That was the first time that week that I kind of woke up. Hey, man, listen to what they're saying about me. I say, see, this is BS what they're doing here. Get me to my house, right? Take me home. And we immediately called the police. The AC told them where we were going.
As AC pulled the Bronco into OJ's driveway at Rockingham, a standoff ensued as a police negotiator urged OJ to put down the gun and exit the vehicle with his hands up.
When we got to my house, I saw a sniper on the roof, and you get defiant. They've been telling you this, they've been saying this stuff about you. I got defiant, so I wouldn't get out of the car. I was just mad until I saw my oldest son, Jason, run across the road, and somebody grabbed him and said, "That's my father." And then I say, "I gotta get out of this car. I don't want him to get into it."
The police now know where he is. We have found him. The door is opening, and let's see what happens now.
O.J. Simpson is in custody. He's been transported here to Parker Center. He is being booked and processed. That'll include prints, mugshot.
He sounds very convincing when he talks about being suicidal and being desperate and being unhappy and wanting to end it. And then when he gets to the part where he says, "They killed me." What did you make of that?
He clearly was desperate. Physically and emotionally was going through that. I think he was intending to kill himself. But at the end, when he's talking about him, he's basically the victim here. It's people thinking bad thoughts about him, people not holding him up. That's what's devastating to him. He wasn't suicidal, I don't believe, because his ex-wife, the mother of his children, was murdered brutally. He wasn't suicidal because of that, but because his image was damaged.
He says he woke up, really, when he realized he was getting bad press in the form of Dan Rather laying out
the domestic violence. That what gets him mad is that people would think he's a wife beater.
I think he's a very complicated person. I think he's addicted to the limelight. And one of the things that I noted about his behavior at the time, halfway through the interview, he leaned over to me when we were taking a break and he said, "When you came here today, you didn't think you'd like me, but I changed your mind, didn't I?" And at no point did he ever acknowledge or really understand the gravity of his actions.
So the police take OJ downtown to be booked, put on suicide watch. Listen to how he describes that experience.
What was jail like for you?
In the beginning, it was tough because I'm a talker. I'm a guy that spends his whole life socializing. And most people don't realize I was in solitary confinement the full 17 months I was there. One of the sergeants would go out his way sometime to talk to me through the cell, but I had no one to talk to from morning to night.
What was that like?
In the beginning, obviously it was horrible. You are so at the mercy of your jailers. For instance, the first time I had to make an appearance in court, I looked so bad. I had no tie on. But what the public don't know is they woke me up every 15 minutes. They rattled my cell, turned on the lights. They alleged I was on suicide watch, but all night long, they woke me up. They made sure I sat up in bed and looked at them. Now, you go through that all night long and see what you look like that day in court. And I look horrible that day in court.
Mr. Simpson, do you understand the charges as I read them to you?
Yes.
And have you discussed those charges with your lawyer, sir?
Yes.
At this time, do you wish you enter a plea guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Apart from his arraignment, OJ would not be seen again until his trial began 6 months later.
You are looking at inmate number 4103970, O.J. Simpson.
Up next, O.J.'s reaction to the trial of the century.
There's no way they can convict me of this.
Why he's still mad at Nicole.
I've cursed her. I've been to her gravesite, and why? What the hell?
And why he agreed to tell all.
Tonight, you've heard O.J. Simpson tell us, hypothetically, what he says happened the night Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman were murdered. Next, he tells us what he really thought of the trial of the century and why he is still angry with his late ex-wife.
Are you ready to enter a plea at this time?
Yes, sir.
How do you plead to counts 1 and 2?
Absolutely 100% not guilty.
The Los Angeles County District Attorney has just filed murder charges against Orenthal James O.J. Simpson.
For nearly a year, the so-called trial of the century was must-see TV.
There is an amazing, ravenous appetite for information about O.J. Simpson.
In 1995, just 3 years after the LA riots, the debate over OJ's guilt or innocence divided America across racial lines.
These white people, excuse me, but that's the way I feel about this here situation, trying to set the brother up.
The prosecution was confident they had a slam dunk case.
I've never had a case with so much evidence in my entire life.
Traces of the victim's blood was found in Simpson's car and at his home.
And it's the kind of evidence that causes defendants to be convicted.
You guys thought you had a slam dunk case. Marsha Clark said, "I have never tried a case with so much evidence." She sounded incredibly confident.
Contrary to what people might think, we were seasoned veterans in the DA's office, and we understood that there's more to a trial than just the evidence. The first time I talked to Marsha Clark about this case, she said, "I have all of this evidence. The only problem now is if I can get someone to believe it."
This case is a circus, and they've made it a circus.
The mostly African-American jury did not believe it after Simpson's dream team of lawyers successfully took advantage of a series of police and prosecution missteps, including testimony about a key detective using a racial slur.
He said, the only good is a dead.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
It created reasonable doubt that O.J. Simpson had committed the murders.
All right, Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant or involved James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 197A, felony one.
So 11 months of trial. Here's how O.J. describes to you, Judith, how he heard about the verdict.
What did you think of the verdict when the jury came back into the room?
I felt that if there's anything right with the universe, there's no way they can convict me of this, right? And we're not talking hypothetical yet. That's how I felt. There was a lot of talk that somebody who knew the verdict came to my cell and told me the night before, which is total BS. Everybody that I came in contact with at the jail, which was run by the sheriff department, told me I was going home from the moment Mark Furman got off the stand. When Van Adder and Furman testified, all the guys at the jail said to me, whoever was watching me at the time said, "You may have did it, you may not have did it, but you're going home." The minute the jury knows these cops are lying, and they're lying, they do not convict if they think a police officer's lying.
What was your reaction when you heard
I told all the lawyers, we met, and I said, I don't want any celebrating. And I told my mother that the night before, and my sisters, I don't want no celebrating because 2 people are still dead, and I don't want anybody celebrating if the verdict is positive towards me.
Most Americans continue to believe that O.J. Simpson got away with murder, but some still maintain that he is innocent, a victim of racist cops and the media. And even though he was acquitted in the criminal trial, O.J. didn't get off scot-free. In 1997, a jury found him liable for the double murders in a civil trial. He was ordered to pay the victims' families $33.5 million in damages.
The money is not the issue. It never has been. It's been making certain that one man, the man that murdered my son and Nicole, is held responsible by a court of law, and it's happened.
Do you feel that you've lived the life of a convicted man in many ways?
Thank God the public has not forced me to live that way. The media has tried, but the public hasn't.
So what's
it's
it been
curious that I go places and the public will come up to me, hug me, ask me how the kids are doing.
You write in the book, I realize that with respect to your children and telling your children, I realized that neither of them really understood what had happened to Nicole, let alone the long-term effects that her death would have on their lives. What long-term effect has it had?
Well, I may see it in, I don't like talking about my kids. I got to make it clear that, and my kids have told me, "Dad, you said you weren't going to talk about this, don't talk about this." But I will go so far as to say this. Sydney especially had enough time with her mother to establish a work ethic. She was accepted in every college that she applied to. They both went to the schools of their choice. They're both in college. For what these kids have gone through, even if they hadn't gone through it, I can't imagine having 2 better kids.
Do you talk to them about their mother?
That's something that my kids ask me not to discuss. It's nobody's business. And just to say that, I feel totally loved by my kids. They know that they're very loved.
Sydney Simpson was only 9 when her mother was murdered on the front steps of their home at Bundy Drive. Her brother Justin was 6. They were asleep upstairs that night, and police woke them and took them out the back door so they didn't have to see the crime scene. We don't know what their relationship with their father is like today, but O.J. says he has never tried to erase Nicole's memory.
Do you have a picture of Nicole at home on the wall?
Yeah. No, it's in the living room. Yeah. It's Nicole, me, and the kids. It was the last real group picture we took together. So it's right there prominent in my living room. And my kids keep pictures of her in their room.
Do you believe in heaven and hell?
Yes.
Do you believe that you're going to see Nicole someday?
Yes, I do.
You do?
And my mother, my dad, I surely do.
And what will you say to her?
Hey, I haven't thought of that. I would hug her. She, if there's a heaven, there's a hell. They know. I don't have to explain anything. They know. That's what heaven and hell is all about.
Do you ever talk to her in your mind?
No, I pray to her. I got on my knees and say, hey, look, I've cursed her. I've been to her gravesite, and why? What the hell? Look at these kids. Look at Sydney with no mother. I've done that. I've done that.
That is what most domestic abuse partners do. They connect violence and love.
May I add something now that all makes sense? Because I remember during that time, the family got a call from the cemetery and said, he's here. And they said, excuse me? And they said, he's here, and we're scared because he's screaming at Nicole's grave.
Oh, geez.
Just screaming at it. And the family said, well, call the police.
Did you know that?
No. I've never heard that before. He's really revealed himself.
Within a year of that 2006 interview with Judith Regan, O.J. was in trouble again.
This is the state of Nevada versus Orenthal James Simpson.
arrested in Las Vegas for armed robbery, and what he maintains was an ill-conceived plan to recover sports memorabilia that he claimed belonged to him. He was sentenced to 33 years in prison, but was paroled after only 9 and released last October.
I basically have spent a conflict-free life.
Mr. Simpson, I do vote to grant parole.
Thank you. Thank you.
How do you think you will be remembered?
We talk in this book about hypotheticals. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, everybody is going to give their opinion. They're going to hypothesize what this book means. He was guilty or he was purging his guilt. Whatever you want to take from it, I cannot control it. We cannot control what you think. My friends and family know that. So whichever reason why I did it, you decide. You decide.
Any thoughts?
He thinks he's so clever, he's so manipulative, he's all of these things, but at the end of the day, he doesn't really manipulate anybody because who he is on full display.
Does hearing from O.J. Simpson bring you any closure? Does that bring Denise any closure?
I don't think you can bring closure unless you can bring Nicole back. All I really care about is that Nicole gets a decent understanding here.
What would you like people to remember about Nicole Brown Simpson?
Just the sweetest, the most decent, the moral compass of a lot of us. An incredible mom. She was a really good person.
Thank you all for this conversation. I know it's been difficult. I know it's been really grueling, actually, but I appreciate all your insight. Today, O.J. Simpson lives in Las Vegas and is a free man.
They're the ones that abandoned me.
But 12 years.
Well, not no more. OJ is long live OJ. Rest in peace to the OJ, to the juice man. All right, y'all. We're gonna definitely go live later. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this broadcast, man. Thank y'all for coming through. You know what I'm saying? And so definitely catch y'all on the next live stream. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Also, if you haven't shopped with us yet at nightanddaynetmarket.com, make sure you head over there and shop with us. 25% off on all CBD products, soaps and body oils on there as well. Get hoodies and apparel and all other type of things. The Zeolite Detox is on there as well. So, and on that note, go ahead and get up out of here. Catch y'all on a rebound. All right.